Chapter 26 Harvest. When, after a heavy sound, air was fine. Instead, Fiddly clutched his right hand in pain and knelt on the ground in pain. After kicking this annoying guy away, Air touched his chin and fell into deep thought. Why can't I help but use Iron Body? Could it be that he was fallen under the illusion of Iron Body? Air shuddered and drove this terrible thought out of his mind. Damn it, I must have used Iron Body too much before I learned how to arm myself. I must get rid of this bad habit in the future. I don't want to receive a full blow from a certain boss in the future. Putting his thoughts back, Air looked at the pirates again. At this time, Fiddly was kicked by Air. Although he was very embarrassed, he still got up tenaciously. The other guys who looked like carders also surrounded him with their younger brothers. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Fiddly smiled wildly and said, "Kid, I admit that you are very strong. But you idiot should not have run to my ship alone. Now facing my 6 carders, look at you. What else can we do?" "What should I do?" Air spread his hands and said arrogantly, "I'll just kill you all." Seeing that Air was about to die, he was still so arrogant. Fiddly clenched his fists and rushed towards him again. "Boys, come together. Kill him." The pirates plucked up their courage again and rushed forward with the captain. Air was almost done playing. When he saw this, he clenched his right fist and covered it with armed colors. Shave. When he appeared again, he was already under Fiddly. 6 styles middle dot boxing. Bang. A powerful blow hit Fiddly hard in the lower abdomen. Fiddly bent into a lobster shape, spat out a large mouthful of blood, and turned into a meteor that crashed into the depths of the cabin. Without waiting for the pirates to react, Air put his hands on the ground and swept his thighs in a circle like a fan. Tempest kick middle dot month. This time Air saved his strength and didn't let these pirates die too ugly. Wiping the non-existent sweat on his forehead, Air looked at his masterpiece with satisfaction, and walked to the cage on the deck with his pockets in his pocket. The boxing pirates are completely destroyed. Because Air carefully avoided this place during the fight, the cage holding the little girl was not damaged at all. Air casually bent the iron bars of the cage. He smiled and stretched out his hand, and said softly to the little girl inside, "Come out, you are free." When the warship approached the pirate ship, Nasha and the sailors rushed to the deck of the pirate ship. The scene in front of them made them open their mouths in surprise. The deck was covered with blood, and bodies broken into 2 pieces lay scattered on the ground. Only a few seriously injured pirates could barely breathe, and were wailing while covering their wounds. The lieutenant colonel who was waiting for him was holding a 7 or 8-year-old little girl and comforting her gently. Nasha carefully avoided the corpse on the ground, came to Air, looked at Air who was coaxing the child with admiring eyes, stood at attention and saluted. "Sir, Lieutenant Colonel, did you do this all by yourself?" Seeing Nasha's arrival, Air's eyes lit up and he quickly put the crying little girl holding his clothes into her hands and said, "Nasha, you came just in time. This little girl is a slave captured by pirates. You comfort her, and I will arrange the follow-up matters." After saying that, he ran away without looking back. "Oh, Lieutenant Colonel." Nasha still wanted to stop her, but the little girl in her arms cried loudly. She had no choice but to comfort her. In a hurry, Air came to the bewildered sailors and ordered in a pretentious manner, "Don't just stand here. Pick out those with bounties and take them away, and then inspect the entire ship. Take away everything of value." After hearing Air's order, the soldiers looked excited and started to get busy. After shouting. Seeing the soldiers busy, Air jumped back to the warship, lay on a chair, lit a cigarette and waited quietly. About half an hour later, Air, who was about to fall asleep, was woken up by Nasha. Taking off the military cap from his face, Air yawned and asked her, "How's it going?" Reporting to the lieutenant colonel, except for the Captain Fidari who was imprisoned, all of them died. After we took photos of the pirates with bounties on them, we threw their bodies into the sea. In addition, we found treasure on the pirate ship of about 20 million bli, as well as a large amount of food and fresh water. Air nodded to express his understanding, and at the same time ordered, "Turn over most of the treasure to the headquarters, and leave 5 million bli to be distributed to all soldiers according to their ranks." But, this is against the rules," Nasha said hesitantly. "Don't worry, Bailey headquarters won't ask any questions about this, and the soldiers have to face ferocious pirates and may die in battle at any time. Give more money to your family, so that you can be safe for them if there is an accident." "Explain." After pursed her lips, Nasha informed Air as she wished, and then everyone cheered on the warship. According to this division, in addition to Air's 1 million, ordinary soldiers can also receive more than 30,000 bli, which is approximately equivalent to 2,000 yuan. They are still happy to accept this kind of extra money. Air's lips curved into a smile, and his prestige on this ship was finally established. Chapter 27 Arriving at Alabasta. In the next few days, Air and others' voyage went smoothly without any setbacks. At this time, on the deck, a group of big men were surrounding a little girl, trying their best to please her. "Little Annie, look here, Uncle has made delicious food for you." Takachi, the head chef of the warship, said seductively while holding the pastries. Annie thanked him obediently, picked up the pastry and ate it in small bites. The cute look makes such a cute. Why tilde Annie-chan is so cute tilde. Go aside. Snapped. Couch was kicked and hit the railing of the deck, almost falling into the sea. Annie-chan, Uncle made a new toy for you. See if you like it. It was Deb, the navigator on the ship, who spoke. He handed the wooden doll he carved by himself to Annie's hand. Annie was very happy when she received the new toy and said softly, "Thank you, Uncle," which made Deb almost fly up with happiness. Kachi got up from the ground, grabbed Deb's collar and said angrily, "Asshole. Do you want to fight?" Not to be outdone, Deb shouted at him, "Idiot, take your hands away. Believe it or not, Lozi will throw you into the sea." What stupid things are you talking about? Let me teach you a lesson. Idiot, let me show you how powerful I am. Boom. Boom. When, boom. The two of them struggled together in front of everyone. Just as they were entangled, Annie, who was in the center of Uzumaki, was caught by Air, who happened to be passing by. She stepped forward with her short legs and followed closely, hugging Air's thigh. After looking down and realizing it was this little guy, Air picked her up into his arms and took her to patrol the warship. Annie was the little girl he rescued from the pirate ship. Because her parents were killed by pirates, she stayed on the warship and planned to make arrangements after arriving in Alabasta. Perhaps it was because Air saved her. She was closest to Air on the warship. Whenever she saw him, Annie would stick to him like a plaster. And Air also dotes on her very much and often walks around with her in his arms. Just then the lookout sent word that Alabaster was coming soon, so everyone should be prepared. Air walked up to Kacha and Deb, who were still struggling together, punched each of them and said, "Stop making trouble. We are coming." "Deb, you will direct the docking. Kachi will take people to the city to buy some supplies later. We will stay here for a while." The two of them bowed obediently with their big bags in their hands, snorted coldly, and went to do their business obediently. After Air found various officers and gave some instructions, the warship also entered the Santa Ola River and followed the river to the coast near the capital Albana. Breathing the air of his hometown, Air felt refreshed. At this moment, shouts came from below. "Air, Air, I'm here to pick you up." Air recognized this familiar voice immediately. He came to the side of the boat and took a look. Sure enough, it was Vivi waving and calling him. Cobra, Ikem and others were also seen nearby. It seemed that they had received the news and were waiting for him in advance. Phone bugs. Keep in touch. Before the boat could stop, Air held Annie and jumped directly onto the moonwalk. Under the surprised eyes of Vivi and others, she came to them. "Vivi, Uncle Cobra, Ikrim, Belle, and Jaka." "I'm back." Air put Annie down in his arms and greeted them one by one. "I haven't seen you in 5 years. I didn't expect you to have grown so tall," Cobra said happily looking at her. But then he looked at Annie, who was being held by Air, and roared angrily, "You bastard kid, since you are carrying Vivi on your back. You even have a child." Air and Vivi instantly turned into shark faces and roared, "Idiot, how is this possible?" "Dad, what do you mean you are carrying me behind your back?" After hearing Air's explanation, Cobra breathed a sigh of relief, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and said with a smile, "Haha, is that so? It seems that I misunderstood. I knew you would not abandon Vivi." Puff. Cobra was punched away by Vivi with a nosebleed, leaving Air and others stunned. Withdrawing her fist, Vivi returned to her cue's look, hugged Air's arm, and said pitifully, "Air, you haven't been back for so long. I miss you so much." After rubbing her little head, Air apologized to her sheepishly. "Sorry Vivi, it took me so long to come back to see you. But I will be stationed in Alabasta from now on, so there will be many opportunities to meet you." "Really? That's great." Hearing Air's words, Vivi jumped up happily. At this time, Cobra also got up from the ground. He wiped the nosebleed and restored the majesty of the monarch. "Since we are stationed in Alabasta, I will be responsible for your supplies from now on, and I will also allocate funds to help you build the base." Looking at his uncle who was taking care of him as always, Air thanked him. "Thank you, Uncle, but I won't bother you with the funds. I will solve it myself." Chapter 28 World Government. Speaking of this, Air remembered that there was a lot of treasure on his ship. Just at this moment, Nasha came over with a group of Marines. So Air introduced everyone. "Uncle, this is my adjutant Nasha. I still have a lot of treasures on my warship. I hope you can help me replace it with Bailey." After that, he introduced to Nasha and others, "This is His Majesty King Cobra of Alabasta. If you have any questions in the future, you can ask His Majesty for help." Nasha was startled and quickly saluted Cobra. "Hello, Your Majesty Cobra. I am Lieutenant Junior Grade Nasha, Lieutenant Colonel Air's adjutant. On behalf of Marine, I would like to thank you for your support." After saying that, she was stunned again and looked at Air in shock. "Uncle, Uncle? The king is the Lieutenant Colonel's uncle." The other Marines also looked at him with bulging eyes and disbelief. Air waved his hand and said nonchalantly, "I am considered a branch of the royal family. Although the blood relationship is a bit distant, I was adopted by my uncle since childhood, so I can barely be considered a prince." Hearing this, Cobra couldn't help but murmured softly, "It's better to be far away, otherwise how could I marry Vivi to you?" Suddenly, Cobra noticed a murderous aura. He trembled all over and looked towards the source of the murderous aura, only to see Vivi glaring at him with a blushing face. Cobra smiled awkwardly, quickly changed the topic, and enthusiastically invited everyone. Aha! Ha, you must have worked hard after sailing for so long. I have prepared a dinner for everyone. Please come with me. Everyone cheered and happily followed Cobra and others to the palace banquet hall. During the dinner, the Marines were chatting with each other in a lively manner. Air and others were taken to a more private restaurant, where everyone chatted and laughed about their own stories. Vivi put her little face with her hands and said with admiration, "Hey, that means Brother Air is now a Lieutenant Colonel of Naval Headquarters. How awesome, Tilda." Cobra also nodded with satisfaction. "I never expected that you would be accepted as a disciple by the former Marine Admiral Zephyr. I guess you must be very strong." Speaking of this, Nasha, who was sitting quietly eating by the side, couldn't help but interjected, "The Lieutenant Colonel is very strong. On the way here, he single-handedly defeated the heavy boxer Faida, who had a bounty of 88 million Baileys, and all his men." After swallowing a large piece of barbecue, Air accepted everyone's compliments unceremoniously. "That's right, I'm super powerful now. The average Marine Vice Admiral can't beat me." As soon as he said this, he received the admiring looks of several little fans. Cobra watched with secret envy. After the dinner was over and everyone left, Cobra and Air found a room alone to chat. After the two sat down, Cobra suddenly asked, "Air, do you know the history of the Alabaster royal family?" Reclining on the sofa, Air pondered for a while and slowly said, "I know a little bit. It is said that the Nefertari family is one of the founders of world government and is the descendant of 20 kings. However, their ancestors refused to move to the Holy Land, marry E-Joys and became celestial dragons. Yes, Alabasta was ruled by Queen Lily at the time, but her existence was erased in subsequent history." Speaking of this, Cobra became serious. "I don't know the truth of history. I just want to warn you that world government is not trustworthy. You'd better not have too much contact with higher-level officials. I know that the current government is extremely corrupt, and the destruction of Harem more than 10 years ago is not a manifestation of their fear of history. There must be a bigger secret here." Cobra's pupils widened and he interrupted him eagerly. "Don't try to pursue the truth of history. It's better to pretend you don't know some things." Air lowered his head and remained silent for a while. After a while, he suddenly stood up. "Okay, that's enough chatting. I'm going to find Vivi. We haven't seen her for so long, and I still have a lot to say to her." After saying that, he turned and left. Cobra was left speechless, quietly thinking about the future. Following the guard, Air came to the bedroom where he had been away for a long time. Air was surprised when he opened the door. Vivi is holding a giant panda doll and looking out the window. When she heard the door opening, Vivi immediately turned around and saw Air coming. She immediately trotted into her arms with bare feet. Due to the huge height difference, Air carried Vivi back to the bed like a child. As soon as she landed, Vivi chirped and asked about Air's experience in the past few years. She was curious about what Naval Headquarters Marineford was like, and what the Marshal and Admiral looked like. Air smiled and patiently answered her questions, and also told her many interesting things about the department. The little girl laughed and liked the story Air told her very much. In this way, the two chatted all night, and it was not until early in the morning that the little girl cuddled up against the doll and fell asleep deeply. After covering her with a quilt, Air took off her clothes and slept on another bed prepared by someone nearby. After all, we have all grown up, and it is not okay to sleep together again. Early the next morning, Air was woken up by a phone ringing while he was sleeping. Squinting and groping among the clothes on the bedside, Air picked up the phone and asked feebly. Chapter 29 Heading to East Blue. Moses, who is that? Hey, is it Air? I need your help. A familiar voice came from the other end of the phone. Air glared at the phone bug that had turned into an idiot like Gup, and said angrily, "Old man Gup, if something happens, you can't call me later and don't check what time it is." Located in East Blue, Kingdom of Goa, Gorbo Mountain, inside Darden's family. Garp sat on Ace and Luffy. After punching the two of them on the head who were still trying to struggle, Garp continued to speak to the phone bug. "Air, kid, come to East Blue now. I have two useless grandsons who are about the same age as you. I want you to teach them a lesson." Why should I help you educate your grandson? It's none of my business." "Okay, it's settled. I've already said hello to Sengoku. I'll help you deal with the 100 million little pirates. No need to thank me." Bye. Air squeezed the phone bug and trembled all over. The terrifying murderous aura scared the phone bug to the point where tears and runny eyes came out. "Arsehole old man, I'm going to kill you." Maybe his voice was too loud and woke up Vivi and Annie in the other bed. Vivi rubbed her eyes and sat up, asking in a daze, "Brother, what happened?" Air suppressed the anger in his heart and explained to her bitterly. "There is an old bastard who asked me to go to East Blue. Damn it, I just returned to Alabasta." Hearing this, Vivi immediately woke up. She grabbed the quilt and reluctantly asked, "Is my brother leaving again?" Air ruffled his hair as if venting his anger, and Kaido said helplessly, "I have no choice. I still have to help with this little help. I can only leave for a while." Vivi let out a disappointed sound and lowered her head. Suddenly, Vivi thought of something else and asked quickly, "Can't brother just take me with him?" Hearing this, Air was stunned and looked at Vivi's expectant gaze. He touched his chin, thought for a moment, and then agreed with his fist. After all, It is the request of the princess of the participating country. As a marine, I still have to meet this small request. Upon hearing Air's agreement, Vivi immediately cheered excitedly and jumped on the bed to celebrate. Seeing her so happy, Air smiled and stood up, put on her clothes, and told Vivi, "Hurry up and change your clothes. I'll go talk to Uncle Cobra." After saying that, he closed the door and left the bedroom. Vivi put on her slippers obediently and started looking for clothes. I found my favorite little skirt and dressed it up in a mirror. Air had already informed Cobra of the matter and was having breakfast with Nasha and others. As soon as the cute little girl appeared, she attracted the attention of all the marine uncles. Everyone was captured by her cute appearance. Seeing Vivi, Cobra immediately rushed up and hugged her, crying bitterly, "My lovely Vivi, you have been so far away from me since you were a child. I will miss you when you are gone." Woo-woo. Pushing his big face away, Vivi looked at her embarrassed father and said sheepishly, "Dad, I just went to East Blue and will be back soon." Cobra wiped his tears, looked at Air and said fiercely, "You bastard, if Vivi is even slightly injured, I will throw you into the sea to feed the sea kings. Do you hear me?" Air looked at his excited uncle and said helplessly, "It's just a trip to East Blue, that's not it." Cobra pressed Air's forehead and shouted loudly, "What did you say, you brat?" Air had no choice but to raise his hands in surrender and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely protect her, unless I die." "That's it, you are such a daughter-in-law." Cobra took a few steps back with satisfaction and told Air that he was his daughter so he wouldn't object. "I have prepared the materials for you, and I have asked people to start building the base. Be careful along the way. I will wait for you to come back." In this way, Air, who had just returned home not long ago, took Vivi and headed directly to East Blue through the calm belt. At this time in East Blue, Garp was educating his two grandsons who dreamed of becoming pirates as usual. "Asshole, you two don't understand yet. You are going to become a powerful marine in the future." Luffy, who is 1 year younger than Air and is 12 years old, retorted stubbornly, "No, Shanks and I made an appointment to become the Pirate King in the future." 15-year-old Ace also said, "Yes, I want to become the Pirate King, so I won't do anything marine." Boom. Boom. "What stupid things are you talking about? Especially you, Luffy. Sooner or later I will find Shanks and teach him a lesson." Luffy raised his head tenaciously and said unconvinced, "Shanks is very strong, I will definitely defeat you." Ace covered his head and whispered, "Hey, Luffy, please stop talking." Garp squeezed his iron fist and hit Luffy angrily. "Is this your attitude when talking to Grandpa? It seems that I haven't educated you enough." Bang bang. Boom, boom, boom. When, after a burst of punches and kicks, Ace and Luffy rolled their eyes, twitched and fell to the ground with countless big bags on their shoulders. Garp clapped his hands and said to the two of them, "I have already called a marine who is your age to come to East Blue. When he arrives, he will help me correct your mistakes." After saying that, he turned and left. Chapter 30 Windmill Village. Relying on the warship equipped with sea stone, Air and his party passed through the calm belt. After more than half a month of sailing, they finally arrived at their destination, the Windmill Village of East Blue. The dog-headed warship stopped next to Garp, and after instructing the soldiers to move freely, Air led Vivi off the ship. Garp's adjutant, Bogart, who was wearing a brown suit, a brown round hat, and a coat of justice, was waiting here early. "Bogart, Rear Admiral, I am Lieutenant Colonel Air of this headquarters." "Where is Vice Admiral Garp now?" Bogart didn't smile and simply replied, "Vice Admiral Garp will be here soon. I will take you to the tavern to wait for him." Air readily agreed. He was also looking forward to Makino's tavern, so he followed him to the tavern. Along the way, Vivi was very excited to see the scenery that was completely different from Alabasta. Jijizaza talked to Air about the strange things he had seen, exuding lively energy. Bogart also recognized the little princess and glanced at Air in confusion without paying much attention. Soon they arrived at the tavern, and Bogart opened the door with ease and walked in. Makino, the young and beautiful proprietress, saw Bogart and greeted him warmly. "Mr. Bogart, welcome. Do you want something to drink?" After saying that, she looked at Air and asked, "Is this young Mr. Marine your friend? I've never seen him before." Bogart found a seat and sat down and introduced her. "This is Naval Headquarters Lieutenant Colonel Air, who was asked by Vice Admiral Garp to help." Then someone introduced her. "Lieutenant Colonel Air, this is Miss Makino, the proprietress of the tavern." Air greeted her politely. "Hello, Miss Makino, just call me Air." "Bring me and Mr. Bogart a glass of wine, and give this little girl a glass of juice." Makino smiled and turned around to prepare drinks for the three of them, and then said, "Air, you can also call me Makino. I really can't tell that you're a lieutenant colonel at such a young age." "Ha ha ha, I'm very powerful." Air drank the wine in one gulp and said without any humility. At this time, a voice came from the door, interrupting the conversation of several people. "Air kid, your strength is not even close." I saw Garp walking in with arrogant steps, holding a pig-headed man in one hand. When she heard someone slandering Brother Air, Vivi couldn't help but glare at Garp. Garp threw the two pig-headed men on the ground, looked at the familiar little girl, and asked with a snort, "What, Air, you have a daughter?" "Idiot, it's my sister." Air couldn't help but roared with shark face. And Vivi, Haven't you seen her before? After flicking his nose, Garp remembered. Oh, it's this little girl. I think she's the princess of Alabasta. Forget it. These are my grandsons Ace and Luffy. These two idiots have been thinking about becoming pirates all day long. I thought that since you are the same age, I might be able to change their minds by leaving it to you. Looking at Luffy and the two lying on the ground, transformed into pig heads, Air couldn't help but have a headache. I don't say whether I can persuade them to give up becoming pirates, just say what if I really succeed. Then Shanks, Luffy's leader, shouldn't come over from the New World and fight for his life. Covering his head, Air reluctantly agreed. Let me try. After all, even you can't convince them, so I don't have much confidence. Haha, I'll leave it to you then. It's okay to beat him to death. After saying that, Garp kicked the two pig-headed men towards Air. Seeing the miserable situation of the two of them, Makino couldn't bear to walk out from behind the bar and carefully treated their wounds. Mr. Garp, they are still young, so they don't need to be so heavy-handed. Garp waved his hand nonchalantly. This is a test for them. When I am as old as them, I can challenge the Sea Kings alone, but they are still far away. Boy Air, I'll leave this to you. I'll go back to my headquarters first. Air was agitated after hearing this, glanced at the unconscious two with pity, and yelled at Garp, "Smelly old man, you are so irresponsible. Leave these two troubles to me and run away." "No. I protest." Garp turned around with a cold face, clenched his fists and sneered, "What? Do you have any opinions?" Swallowing his saliva, Air wiped the cold sweat off his head, waved his hand with a dry smile, and said insincerely, "No, I wish you a smooth journey. Bye." Snort. Garp snorted and walked away with Bogut without looking back. After the people walked away, Air breathed a sigh of relief. "Tch, I thought you were so powerful, and you weren't so frightened by the old man that you couldn't speak." Ace, who was lying silently, noticed that Garp had left, and immediately stood up lively and said disdainfully to Air. Luffy, who was also lying dead, also rolled up, rubbing his head and looking at Air and Vivi curiously. "Didn't Grandpa say that the person who came is 1 year older than me? Why are you so much taller than me?" Indeed, neither Luffy nor Ace's height is that exaggerated. The current 12-year-old Luffy is about 140 centimeters tall, while the 15-year-old Ace is a little over 165 centimeters, definitely less than 170 centimeters. No matter how you look at it, Air doesn't look 13 years old. Even Makino couldn't help but be a little surprised after hearing this. Chapter 31 Lesson Ace, crossing his legs and lighting up a cigarette happily, Air said with a smile, "I am indeed only 13 years old, but my development is just a little better. Although I can't beat old man Garp, it's enough to educate you two brats." His arrogant tone immediately angered Ace, who felt very unhappy that a guy smaller than himself called him a kid. HMPH. This guy who only talks big words has the ability to fight with me. Vivi, who had long disliked Ace questioning her brother, quickly agreed for Air. "Brother is very strong, he will definitely beat you up." Ace ignored Vivi at all and pressed his head against Air, waiting for his answer. He rubbed Vivi's little head to reassure her. Air stood up and walked out of the tavern. "You said so let me show you my strength." Seeing Air agree, Ace quickly followed him. The two followers, Luffy and Vivi, were not to be outdone and chased him out together. Makino originally wanted to stop him, but when he thought it was Garp's order, he had to swallow his words and watch them run away. Air walked to an open space behind the village and stopped. He put his pocket in his pocket and turned to look at the few people who were following him, and then fixed his eyes on Ace. "Just here, you make the first move." Ace looked at the sword on Air's waist and saw that he had no intention of drawing the sword and asked, "You are a swordsman, why don't you draw the sword?" Don't worry about it, I just don't think I need to deal with you, arsehole." Ace, feeling slighted, rushed towards him with a water pipe in his hand. "Don't underestimate me." Facing the incoming attack, Air just turned aside and dodged. "It's not over yet. Look at my move." Ace raised the water pipe high above his head and smashed it down with force. "You have a good momentum," Air boasted, but his body didn't show any signs of hiding. Bang! The water pipe hit Air hard on the head. Vivi, who was watching the match, clenched her fists nervously, while Luffy happily cheered for Ace. "Succeeded!" Ace thought excitedly. "Such a terrifying power. I almost got hurt by you." Air imitated Kizaru and said cowardly, "Nani." Ace looked surprised, knowing that his full blow could knock down even Yamanaka's tiger. Unexpectedly, Air was okay and was in the mood to mock him. Looking at the surprised Ace, Air did not tolerate him and disappeared in front of him in a flash. It's not a good habit to be distracted while fighting. A voice suddenly appeared behind Ace. Ace turned his head quickly, but it was too late. Air stretched out his leg and kicked Ace hard in the abdomen. Ace turned into a meteor and flew upside down for more than 10 meters, stopping only after hitting a big tree. Ace stood up with difficulty and shed a drop of cold sweat looking at Air, who was careless. "So fast, I can't see him at all. If this continues, I will lose." "Hey, Ace-chan, isn't this okay? I haven't warmed up yet. Asshole, don't call me that." With a roar, Ace regained his composure. He didn't believe that he would be defeated by someone younger than himself. Ha! Ace kicked off his legs and rushed towards Air quickly. That's all. I'm very disappointed in you. Seeing Ace still attacking him blankly, Air said with some disappointment. Just when he was about to kill this guy with one blow, Ace took out a handful of ashes from nowhere and threw it at her. Depend on. Air quickly closed his eyes and used Sha to quickly leave the place. Unexpectedly, Ace suddenly threw the water pipe at him as a javelin, although Air sensed it with his sense of sight and dodged in advance. But this momentary flaw was perfectly grasped by Ace. He raised his fist and punched Air's head, heart, lower abdomen and the most important part of the man's crotch continuously. Bang 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 bang. After several muffled sounds, Air was not knocked to the ground as expected, but his face was dark, and he was completely covered in armor and blocked the attack just now. Asshole. Don't you know that part of a man's body is taboo? Armed color. Iron fist of love. Bang. Ace spit out a large mouthful of blood and flew dozens of meters away, unable to get up again. Luffy saw Ace's miserable condition and rushed towards Air with red eyes and swinging his arms. What did you do to Ace? Fruit trees. Fruit trees. Pistols. Luffy's arm stretched back like a noodle. When it reached its limit, it quickly rebounded and hit her. Air took a step back and saw Luffy's hand passing by his eyes and hitting a tree. When retracting it, it accidentally got stuck on a branch, and the whole person was pulled over uncontrollably. Boom. Wang! Luffy just hit a big tree by himself. His head was stuck in the tree and couldn't be pulled out. He looked funny like a monkey. Don't worry, I just stopped my strength. He will just fall into a coma for a while and he won't die. Air dusted himself off and explained to him. After speaking, he looked at Vivi, showed a bright and cheerful smile, and said softly, Vivi, let me take you for a walk in the village. Vivi smiled and nodded, ran up to hold Air's hand, and skipped away. Chapter 32 Taking Luffy and Ace out to sea. After the two left, Luffy spent a lot of effort before pulling his head out of the tree. After looking around angrily and realizing that the annoying guy was gone, Luffy quickly ran to Ace's side. Ace, how are you? After being shaken by Luffy, Ace slowly woke up. Luffy, what's wrong with me? After being confused for a while, Ace reacted suddenly, jumped up from the ground, and looked for Air. Where's that bastard? Where did he go? Luffy smiled happily after seeing that Ace was safe and sound. It's great that you're okay, Ace. They just left and seemed to go to the village to play. Ace reluctantly punched the tree next to him, leaving a deep fist mark on the tree. Damn it, how come the gap between me and him is so big? How can I become the Pirate King like this? The tragic defeat just now left a big shadow on Ace's heart. He had trained so hard since he was a child, and he thought he was already very strong. Unexpectedly, he would be beaten by a guy 2 years younger than him today, leaving him unable to fight back. Compared to Ace's self-doubt, Luffy didn't think much about it. He clutched his stomach that started to growl and retorted weakly, I am the man who wants to become the Pirate King tilde I'm so hungry. Looking at Luffy's appearance, Ace's gloomy face suddenly showed a relieved smile. He carried Luffy on his back and walked toward the village, swearing to himself, no matter how strong the enemy is, I will definitely defeat him and go to sea to become a free pirate. Wait for me, Sabo. Unfortunately, although the imagination is beautiful, the reality is very cruel. Brothers Ace and Luffy insist on discussing with Air every day. From the initial one-on-one duel to the current 2-on-1, the two tried various methods, but they were still killed instantly by Air with just a few moves. After being harassed by the two for half a month, Air finally couldn't stand it anymore. One night, Air was walking near the village. After kicking away the two men who attacked him again, he said helplessly, Are you flies? Aren't you tired of harassing me every day? I was just dragged here to fish by old man Garp. There is no need to keep staring at me. Air was really speechless. These two guys were like Seokyang from Immune to Death, harassing him like crazy 24 hours a day. Whether it's shopping with Vivi by myself, taking a shower at night, or sleeping in the middle of the night, these two pieces of dogskin plaster can always pop out from some corner and launch a surprise attack on themselves, making Vivi no longer willing to get close to her. Luffy got up with difficulty and said stubbornly, We must defeat you so that we can go to sea and become pirates. Ace also stood up and echoed, then regained his fighting stance. Air scratched his hair frantically and asked in his soul, Who told you that you have to defeat me to become a pirate? Tell me. I'll kill him. The two of them were stunned at the same time and stopped. Luffy rubbed his head and asked Ace in confusion. Ace, who said that? Ace also scratched his head and said in confusion, Didn't you say that you are here to stop us from becoming pirates? Then of course we will defeat you. Air's anger surged, and he turned into a fanged face and roared, Idiot, who said I would stop you? I was just pulled here by force. Whether you are a pirate or not has nothing to do with me. After saying this, the three of them were stunned at the same time, and the image of someone holding their nose and laughing stupidly appeared in their minds. Bastard old man. 3. The misunderstanding was resolved, and the three of them sat down on the ground at the same time and started chatting. Hey, Air, why did you become a marine? Ace asked curiously while setting up a campfire on the ground. Air was dragging an unlucky wild boar that was affected by the aftermath of the battle, while Kaido was weak. Well, I joined Marine in order to become stronger faster. Luffy held a bunch of branches and asked doubtfully, why not become a pirate? Can't you become stronger by being a pirate? And it's also very free. Actually, I thought about it at the beginning, but I am also a royal family of a country, so joining the pirates is not a good thing for my motherland. Moreover, the reputation of pirates is not very good. In the entire sea, except for a few places, most people dislike or even hate all pirates. Luffy looked at the wild boar roasting on the fire and drooled and asked, why aren't pirates the freest people? Why do everyone hate pirates? At this moment, Ace suddenly spoke. He lowered his head and said in a low voice, he is right. In the eyes of ordinary people, pirates are just bastards who burn, kill and loot. Marine is the savior who protects civilians, so it is natural for him to become Marine. Turning the wild boar over, Air looked at Ace, who was a little depressed, knowing that he was thinking about the father he had never met, and the disgusting words that ordinary people used to say about Roger when he was a child. After thinking about it, Air suddenly said, that's true, but some things are often different from what people think. Marine may not be a hero, and pirates may not be heinous villains. Now that we have said this, how about you go out to sea with me? There is something that I have always cared about. Chapter 33 Cocosia Village. When they heard about going to sea, the two brothers were a little moved, but when they thought of the agreement with the Sabo brothers, they shook their heads again and again. Ace hugged the roasted pork and said slurredly, we have agreed that we cannot go to sea until we are 17 years old. I will not go with you. Luffy also nodded in agreement while stuffing meat into his mouth. Grabbing his own share, Air said, it's okay, I'm just taking you out for a spin, and I'll bring you back. Moreover, don't you want to experience the fun of going to sea in advance? This is a rare experience. Listening to Air's persuasive words, Ace couldn't help but stop eating and think silently. If I just go out for a walk, it shouldn't be considered a violation of the agreement. It should be considered as acclimatizing to the sea journey in advance. Well, that's it. Okay, I've decided. I want to go out with you. Ace looked up and said firmly. Seeing the fish taking the bait, Air raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Then finish your meal early and rest early. We will set off tomorrow. After saying that, he took a big bite of the meat in his hand, but it was all empty. Looking down, he saw that there was only a bone stick with shreds of meat left in his hand. When I looked again, the whole roast pig had disappeared. Damn it, where is my pig? Ace also realized something was wrong and jumped up excitedly. At this time, a slight snoring sound reached the ears of the two of them. When they looked back, they saw Luffy sleeping soundly with his round belly. He didn't need to think about it to know that all the dinner for the two of them had already gone into his stomach. Idiot. Spit out the meat. 2. After a while of fighting, Ace dragged Luffy, who had turned into a pig head, home. Air also returned to the warship alone, took a shower, and lay on the bed to slowly fall asleep. Early the next morning, before Air woke up, Luffy's whistling voice reached his ears. Air, it's time to go. Tilda. Turning over and burying his head in the quilt, his voice finally became quieter. Just when he closed his eyes and was about to fall asleep again, the door was kicked open, and Luffy walked in carelessly. Air, get up. We're going. Hash. Veins popped out on Air's forehead, and after he punched Luffy hard on the head with his armed colored fist, he roared, idiot, it's not even bright yet. Why are you making such a noise? Luffy covered his head in pain, tears welling up in his eyes. Seeing his miserable state, Ace, who was leaning against the door, smiled maliciously and said, idiot, I knew you would be taught a lesson. Bang. And you, why don't you stop him now that you know? Ace fell to the ground with a big bag on his head, his calves twitching. You bastard, I'm going to kill you sooner or later. After venting his anger, Air put on his clothes comfortably and came to the deck. Nasha looked at Air coming out and smiled awkwardly. Sorry, Lieutenant Colonel, I couldn't stop them. He gave her a slap in the face angrily, and seeing her looking pitiful while covering her forehead, Air let her go. Forget it for today. Next time someone disturbs my sleep, I will spank you. Do you understand? Nasha's face turned red and she quickly saluted and promised. Strangely enough, Nasha is 18 years old this year, but next to 13-year-old Air, she looks like a child. Although she is very serious and reliable in her work, but usually, she always gives people a cute and silly feeling. Lieutenant Colonel, Air interrupted her. Don't keep calling me sir. We've been together for so many days anyway, just call me Air. Nasha hesitated, but after Air raised his hand as if to knock, she changed her tune. Air, where is our destination today? Do you want to take Vice Admiral Garp's grandson with you too? Take it with you. Let them see the ferocity of pirates and the scum of submarines. Speaking of this, Air gritted his teeth. Nasha tilted her head, not understanding what Air meant by marine scum. Air did not explain. After telling her that the destination was Cocosia Village, he asked her to gather the soldiers and prepare to set off. As early as watching One Piece, Air was deeply attracted by Nami's story, among them, the plot of Belmere sacrificing himself to protect Nami and Nokagao, and telling them that they can become real family members without blood relations, deeply moved him. It was also unbearable because Nami had to bear the burden of saving the village at such a young age, running around in the cruel sea in order to collect 100 million bali. And most importantly, he was angry at the extreme racism of the fisherman Arlong, and the marine scum Colonel Mouse, who wore a coat of justice but secretly protected the pirates. So, now that he's traveled to this world, he just happens to be in East Blue. If he didn't understand this grudge, he wouldn't be able to swallow this breath in his heart. Air stood on the bow of the ship, looking at the neatly arranged sailors, pointing at the sea and shouting, "Young men, the target is Cocosia village. Let's go." "Yes, Captain." Just like that, under the adoring gazes of Vivi, Ace, and Luffy, Air crossed his arms and commanded the warship to set sail. Chapter 34 The Big Pirate with a Bounty of 2 million. It had been a long time since they left Windmill village, but Ace and Luffy were still running around the warship like runaway huskies. Air and Vivi were lying quietly on the deck chairs, enjoying the sunbathe leisurely. After such a long time, Air finally remembered his cheat, so he quickly called the system and checked his panel. Ding tilde. Nefertari D. Air. Sex, male. Age, 13. Height, 172. Personal abilities, Physique A, 2,971 30,000, Swordsmanship A, 407 30,000, Physical Skills A, 812 30,000, Haki, Armament Hakib 4,173 10,000ths, Observation Hakib 3,934 10,000ths, Conquerors Hakib 1,862 10,000ths, Skill Moves, Shaver, 8,981 10,000ths, Moonwalk, 7,561 10,000ths, Tempest Kick, 7,775 10,000ths, Finger Pistol, 7,094 10,000ths, Iron Bodic, 4,534 5,000, Paper Artsk, 4,011 5,000, Devil Fruit, Dragon Fruit A, 9,032 30,000, Experience Points, 24,950, Overall Rating, A+, stronger than most Vice Admiral. Compared with last time, the system has an additional experience point column. There is also experience gained by Air from capturing the boxing pirates. After so long, Air finally remembered that he had not gained much experience yet. Looking at his own data, Air decided to first bring the armed color and observation haki to A level, which cost a total of 12,043 points. Air thought about the remaining 12,907 experience points and added them all to the constitution. After all, the body is the foundation of everything. As expected of an A-level haki, the quality is far higher than before, and the defense has been greatly improved. The next step should be a mission. Feeling haki wrapped around her hand, Air couldn't help but get excited. Bang bang bang. Just when Air was feeling the color of weapons, the sound of artillery fire was heard in the distance. The lookout hand also reminded loudly at this time. Lieutenant Colonel Air. It was discovered that the merchant ship was attacked by pirates ahead, and the two sides were fighting. Have you seen which pirate group it is? Air looked up and asked. The observer held a telescope and carefully observed the opponent's pirate flag, flipping through his notes for comparison from time to time. After a long time, the lookout finally found an introduction that fit this group of pirates in a corner. Report to Lieutenant Colonel Air. The other party is a group of little pirates with a bounty of 2 million bali. They have no name. Upon hearing that the other party only had 2 million, Air suddenly lost interest and lay back in his chair with a curse. Nasha, I'll leave this group of pirates to you. Yes. After receiving the order, Nasha commanded the warships to approach in an orderly manner, and started shelling after a certain distance. On the merchant ship, the unknown pirate captain heard the sound of the cannon and looked back. When he saw clearly who was coming, he suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Oops, it's Marine. Boys, retreat quickly, he shouted to remind his younger brother, and then moistened it non-stop. The pirates who were fighting with the sailors on the merchant ship quickly abandoned their opponents and ran away when they heard that it was Marine. Upon seeing this, the captain of the merchant ship asked the sailors to stop pursuing and quickly turned around and headed towards Air. Air sensed everything with his newly upgraded sense of knowledge. When he saw the pirates running away, he curled his lips in boredom. Just when he wanted to take back what he had seen and heard, he suddenly spotted an interesting figure on the pirate ship. Stop the bombardment and chase the pirate ship at full speed. Although she didn't understand Air's intention, Nasha still obeyed him honestly. Ace and Luffy, who were originally wandering around, had long been attracted by the sound of cannons and lay on the bow of the ship looking around. Noticing that Air seemed to want to engage in a battle with the opponent, the two immediately became excited and eager to rush forward and fight with the opponent. On the small pirate ship, which was more than 20 meters long, the captain looked at the warship chasing him quickly, and he was so scared that he almost peed his pants. Why is such a big warship so fast? The captain shouted in collapse, unable to figure it out even if he broke his head. After hearing what he said, Air just wanted to say that the latest technology of the department, researched under the guidance of Vegapunk, was a medium-sized warship costing 80 million baileys. Damn it, you're a small broken ship and you have no nerve to compete with me. Seeing the two sides getting closer and closer, the captain gritted his teeth, waved his long sword and encouraged, "Young men, these guys are unwilling to let us go, so we will fight with them and let them see the strength of the big pirate with a bounty of 2 million. After hearing the captain's words, the boys changed their attitude, raised their swords and shouted loudly, leaving Air and all the marines stunned. With 2 million, you still have the nerve to say that you are a big pirate? No shame. As soon as the two ships approached, Ace and Luffy eagerly jumped on board, shaking their fists. Nasha also led a group of sailors to board the enemy ship and fought hand-to-hand with the opponent. Air stood up and jumped onto the opponent's deck, strolling through the crowd of people fighting together. After kicking away the two desperate pirates, he successfully arrived at the cabin. Looking at the door that should be the captain's cabin in front of him, Air gently pushed it open. Then he turned slightly to avoid the incoming attack. "Hey, little sister, attacking Marine is a serious crime." Air looked at the teenage girl in front of him and said with a smile. The little girl has short orange hair, wears ordinary short sleeves and shorts, holds a long wooden stick, and looks very cute with a serious expression. Chapter 35 Little Thieving Cat. Nami. The little girl is Nami. Today she originally sneaked into a merchant ship and planned to steal something. Unexpectedly, she suddenly encountered pirates, but she was brave and did not run away. Instead, she secretly boarded their ship while the pirates were not paying attention, intending to take their treasure as her own. But the pirate ship was also attacked, which shocked Nami, who was trying to pry the treasure chest. Not long after, there were noisy fighting sounds on the deck, so nervous Nami wanted to put the treasure box on her back and escape directly from the window. Just as she was about to take action, there were footsteps coming from far and near outside the room. Shocked, Nami quickly ran behind the door. The moment the other person opened the door, he picked up his wooden stick and hit the other person hard. But as if the other party knew she was inside, he turned aside to avoid his attack. Ruined. Nami closed her eyes in despair. Her hands and feet were cold, and she couldn't imagine herself being caught by pirates. It wasn't until the other person said, "Assaulting Marine is a serious crime," that Nami was slightly startled and suddenly opened her eyes to look at the person. He saw the other party wearing a slutty white suit and white tie, with a knife on his waist, and a coat worn only by Marine lieutenant-level officers, looking at him with a smirk on his face. Seeing that it was Marine, Nami couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, then looked at Air with a pitiful expression, and said with tears in her eyes, "Great, Mr. Marine, I am a villager captured by pirates. Are you here to save me?" Air's eyes twitched. If he hadn't watched the animation, he would have been deceived by Nami's acting skills. "Since you want to act, then I will accompany you." Thinking of this, Air took advantage of his height, bent down and rubbed Nami's head, and said softly, "Don't worry, little sister, my brother is here to save you. You are safe now." To be honest, Nami is the same age as herself, even a little older than her. Nami's birthday is July 3rd, while Air's birthday is August 8th. But there is no way, who made Air grow taller, so there is nothing wrong with calling her little sister. It seemed that Air's comfort had an effect. Nami wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and showed a bright smile. "Thank you, Brother Marine." The sound of the clip made Air's whole body tremble. He knew Nami's true nature, and her cute look was really rare nowadays. With a cough, Air shamelessly took Nami's little hand and led her towards the deck. "Let's go, brother will take you home." Nami looked back at the treasure chest, suppressed her reluctance, and followed Air onto the deck. The battle was over at this time. Facing this group of miscellaneous fish, except for a few unlucky ones who were injured, no one in the navy was killed. Watching Nasha direct the soldiers to tie up the pirates and escort them to the warship, Air frowned and said to stop. "Except for those with bounties, everyone else throws them into the sea. There is no place for such garbage to survive on the Marine." The soldiers didn't react much after hearing this. After all, there were many people in the headquarters who were more radical than Air. Pulling Nami, he walked to Ace and Luffy, who were still discussing the battle just now with great interest. After punching each of them on the head, Air said, "Two idiots, what's the point of showing off after defeating a few soldiers? Come back to the warship with me." Picking up Nami, Air jumped back to the warship. As soon as she jumped onto the deck, the considerate Vivi ran up to her and said with concern, "Air, you are not hurt. Have all the pirates been wiped out?" After saying that, Vivi saw Nami being held in Air's arms. Her little face puffed up angrily. She pointed at Nami and asked, "Who are you and why are you in Air's arms?" "Come down here." Nami, who was still feeling sad about the loss of her treasure, looked at Vivi, who was angry, and said angrily, "Humphrey, does it matter to you where I stay?" But having said that, Nami still struggled to get out of Air's arms. Vivi, who was provoked by Nami, in her own opinion, walked up to her, put her head on her head and said unconvincingly, "Air is my fiancé, no one can be hugged by him except me." As soon as these words came out, Nami, Ace, Nasha, who had just returned, and all the sailors all widened their eyes in surprise. Only Luffy, the idiot, scratched his head and didn't understand what was going on. "Oops, speak your heart out." Vivi covered her mouth, her cheeks flushed with shyness, turned around and ran back to the cabin. Nami looked at Air with a strange look, then thinking about Vivi's appearance, she whispered pervert. His ears moved, and Air roared at Nami, what pervert? I'm only 13 years old. Nani. Nami looked at Air in surprise. His height of over 1.7 meters did not look like he was 13 years old at all. Seeing that she didn't believe it, Air wanted to waste his time. He turned to Nasha and told Nasha, let's distribute the treasure and other things to the soldiers, and then set off towards Cocosia village. Nasha was only slightly surprised and followed Air's order. Nami on the side couldn't help but feel blank and tense after hearing that the group's destination was Cocosia village. Chapter 36 Arlong. You are going to Cocosia village? Why? Nami lowered his head and asked tremblingly. Looking at her appearance, Air gently stroked her head and said softly, of course I am going to conquer Arlong. Slapping Air's hand away, Nami shouted excitedly, it's impossible, you know how powerful Arlong is. You will die. Nami's voice immediately attracted everyone's attention. Air lay back on the lounge chair and said calmly, don't worry, it's just a salted fish. Just a salted fish? Are you kidding? They are fishmen. They are fishmen whose natural wrist strength is 10 times stronger than that of humans. Speaking of this, Nami couldn't help but shed tears. Nasha didn't know what happened, but she hugged Nami tenderly and stroked her back gently. Ace and Luffy were confused and curious. Air asked what a fishman was and who was Arlong. Air looked up at the sky and explained softly to everyone. Arlong, a former member of the Sun Pirates, a pirate group formed by fishermen living under 10,000 meters of the sea. For some reasons, the Sun Pirates disbanded, and Arlong led a group of companions who insisted that fishermen are a superior race and humans a waste. They came to East Blue and ruled more than 20 villages with a bounty of 20 million. After saying that, he looked at Nami. I'm right. Air's tone was suggestive, and his sharp eyes shocked Nami, as if her secret had been seen through. As if he guessed what she was thinking, Air continued, I just noticed the tattoo on your arm. If I remember correctly, it is the logo of the Arlong Pirates. Nani. Everyone looked at Nami in disbelief, with vigilance and curiosity in their eyes. Nami held the tattoo on her left arm and lowered her head silently. Looking at her look, Air didn't want to expose her scars. It doesn't matter, I guess you must have your own difficulties, so I won't ask any more questions. Just stay on the ship with peace of mind and leave everything to me. After saying that, Air lay on the chair with his arms as pillow, closed his eyes and said nothing. Nasha looked at Nami in her arms and consoled her. Don't worry, Air has defeated a big pirate with a bounty of 88 million. 88 million. Nami raised his head in surprise. After seeing Nasha nodding in affirmation, she couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope in her heart. If you don't suggest it, can you come to the bedroom and talk to me about your past? Nasha smiled and said softly. Nami nodded silently and followed Nasha into the cabin. Ace and Luffy followed curiously, and Luffy didn't forget to call out Vivi, who was rolling shyly in the room. Air on the deck opened his eyes, looked at the blue sky and couldn't help but sigh. What a effed up world. Apostrophe. In the room, Nami told everyone that Arlong killed his adoptive mother Belmia, took a fancy to his talent as a navigator, forced himself to join the Arlong Pirates, and made an agreement with himself that as long as he collected 100 million Billy the story of Cocosia village can be redeemed. After hearing this, everyone couldn't help but feel angry towards Arlong and very sympathetic to Nami's experience. Luffy jumped up, clenched his fists and said loudly, I want to defeat this guy Arlong. Ace also stood up and clenched his fists, silently putting Arlong closer to his must-kill list. Vivi and Nasha hugged Nami with their eyes red, and the three of them hugged each other tightly. Seeing the murderous looks of Ace and Luffy, and feeling the warm embrace of Vivi and Nasha, Nami's heart calmed down for some reason. In the next few days, Ace and Luffy practiced with her to strengthen their strength. Vivi and Nasha chatted with Nami to resolve her worries. Finally, under the excited shouts of the lookout, Cocosia village arrived. The Marines who learned about Nami's past were gearing up to let this group of salted fishes experience the power of human beings. Air did not choose to log in at Cocosia village, but went straight to Arlong Paradise under Nami's guidance. Report to Lieutenant Colonel Air, Marine warship found in front of Arlong Paradise. I saw it. Air replied softly, looking at the warship marked Marine 16 branch ahead, his eyes became cold. In Arlong Paradise, Colonel Mouse and Murloc Arlong of Branch 16 were sitting together drinking wine and chatting happily. The mouse raised his glass and praised, Brother Arlong, it seems you have made a lot of money this month. Arlong laughed loudly and drank the wine in the glass. It's all thanks to Mr. Colonel's help, otherwise I wouldn't be able to earn so many Baileys, right? Ha 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 ha. Arlong laughed wildly. The mouse smiled and drank the wine in the glass, stood up and said goodbye, Brother Arlong, it's time for me to leave. After all, someone saw a marine warship parked in the pirates' territory. It can't be justified. Scared? Ha ha ha. Then I'll let Xioba give it to you. Oh, thank you very much. Just as the mouse was about to leave, bang bang bang, 3 shellings were heard. The gate of Arlong Paradise was instantly blown open. It's really strange for Marine and a pirate to sit together and chat. Chapter 37 So scary tilde. A slightly mocking voice came, and Colonel Mouse and Arlong quickly looked at the visitor. I saw on the wall a young marine wearing a white suit and the cloak of justice. Hey, are you Arlong? That look in your eyes is really scary. Air put his hands in his pockets and said in a playful tone. Arlong stood up with a sullen face and said to Colonel Mouse, are these your men? How dare you betray me? Sure enough, an inferior race is an inferior race and is not worthy of belief at all. The mouse was sweating coldly and didn't know how to explain it. He quickly turned his head and shouted in a sullen voice, hey, boy. Which branch are you from? I am Colonel Mouse from the 16th branch. Come down here and apologize to Brother Arlong. Air looked at him coldly and said calmly, you want me to apologize to a salted fish? Are you kidding me? And I am a Lieutenant Colonel Air of the headquarters. Rat, right? You should take care of yourself first and think about how to explain it in a military court. Ben, Lieutenant Colonel of the headquarters. The mouse was completely frightened now. He stood there with trembling legs and didn't know how to respond. At this moment, Air's soldiers also gathered over one after another. Nasha, Nami, Ace, Luffy and others also gathered around Air. Looking at Nami in the crowd, Arlong suddenly understood everything. He opened his mouth and let out an ugly laugh. Ha 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 ha, look who this is. Isn't this my Miss Navigator Nami? As a pirate, did you ask Marine for help? Speaking of this, Arlong's expression changed, and he opened his big mouth full of fangs and roared. Do you think you can defeat me just by relying on these low-level humans? Stop joking. I am a naturally advanced fishman. Does even a mere marine want to defeat me? Following his words, a group of fishmen gathered over, holding up their knives and looking at Air and others with a ferocious smile. Looking at the screaming Arlong, Nami couldn't help but tremble. Childhood memories filled her mind. The scene when Belmere was killed is still fresh in her memory. Feeling Nami's fear, Air jumped down from the wall, walked up to Nami and gently stroked her little head. Nami raised her head, her eyes filled with tears. Air showed a warm smile and said, leave it to me. I will make this salted fish shut up. After saying that, he turned to face Arlong and said, a trash who escaped from the Grand Line is a high-class person who has the nerve to keep his mouth shut. If I remember correctly, you seem to be a piece of trash who was instantly killed by Kizaru Admiral with one move and then burst into tears. It was just for Jinbai's sake that he saved his life. It seems that you have been in East Blue for so long that you can't even tell how much you weigh. Arlong's veins popped out, and every word from the lowly human in front of him stabbed his pain. He stared at Air with red eyes, and just when he was about to take action, Kruby, a leader of the Arlong pirates and a 40th level fishman karate player, stood up. Brother Arlong, leave this brat to us. After saying that, the kissing fish Manju and the octopus man Xioba also stood up. Arlong showed a playful smile, nodded in agreement, and slowly sat back down. Hey, kid, we will be your opponents next and let you see the power of the fishmen. After saying that, Kruby quickly rushed towards Air. Air stood still and did not dodge. Ace, I'll leave this guy to you. As soon as he finished speaking, Ace's figure rushed out and punched Kruby away. I've long disliked these fishmen. Seeing Ace take action, Luffy on the side shouted unconvinced, that's too cunning, I want to fight the fishman too. Air punched him on the head to silence him. Then he pointed and tweeted, coaxing like a child, that ugly guy with the long mouth is your opponent, go ahead. Luffy immediately became full of energy, roared and rushed forward with his fists raised. Ignoring this idiot, Air handed Xioba, the sword wielder, to Nasha, who was also a swordsman. Nasha nodded, pulled out her saber and fought with Xiaoba. The other soldiers did not ask for Air's orders and each found their own opponents. The scene was chaotic for a while. Air dodged, came to Arlong and kicked him away. Damn it, you still dare to sit in front of Losey. I've never seen you so arrogant. Arlong smashed his head into the wall, smashed through the wall, fell into the room and disappeared. After a while, he opened his mouth wide with a ferocious expression and rushed out. You bastard, let's see the true strength of the Murloc. Iron Teeth Kung Fu. I'm so cruel to you. Air roared angrily, wrapped his right hand in armor color, and punched Arlong in the mouth. Arlong was delighted when he saw this and bit his hand hard. Click tilde. Ah! A scream came out. Arlong bent over and covered his mouth in pain. As soon as he took a bite, he felt like he had bitten steel, and his proud teeth were almost completely broken. Air was unyielding, holding Arlong's neck and punching him in the face. Iron teeth, right? A higher race, right, kid? Right. Just a marine, just a marine. Losey makes you just a marine. Bang, 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 bang. In other words, Air punched him and vented the anger of 2 lifetimes at once. After 20 minutes of continuous smashing, the battle between Ace and others was over, and he finally stopped. After exhaling, Air dropped Arlong to the ground. He silently lit a cigarette and took a deep breath. Hi-hoo, I feel comfortable. Chapter 38 Public Execution. Seeing that Air had finished venting, Nasha cautiously came closer. Looking at the ground, Arlong, whose nose was crooked, all his teeth were missing, and his face was swollen into a pig's head. He didn't even recognize his own mother when she arrived, and swallowed silently. Air, the battle is over. All the fishmen have been eliminated. Please give me your instructions. After looking at Nasha and seeing that although her clothes were messy and she had a few wounds on her body, she was not seriously injured, she said with relief, except for Arlong, the remaining garbage, whether dead or not. Just give them a few more shots. Then we will take their bodies back to Cocosia village. Nasha nodded and ran away as if running away. Air's crazy look just now scared her. Looking at her back, Air scratched his head in confusion. Am I so scary? Or is it because I looked too handsome just now and she was embarrassed to talk to me? I must be too handsome. Apostrophe. Air, whose face was stained with blood, thought shamelessly. Turning around, taking a step that he thought was very handsome, he kicked Ace and Luffy away who were blocking the way, and Air walked to Nami's side. Nami watched Air walk in with blood on his face. Not only did he not feel scared, but he also felt inexplicably warm. Belmia, do you see? Arlong is dead and I am free. The one who saved me was a marine like you. Apostrophe. Looking at Nami in a daze, Air thought she was shocked by her own strength, so she said narcissistically, how about it? My strength is not bad. Nami came back from the memories, looked at the narcissistic Air, smiled and hummed. After getting her approval, Air felt even more proud. After pinching Nami's little face, he swung his coat and struck a handsome pose. There is no need for this bullshit paradise to exist anymore. Let me burn it down. Take a deep breath. The roar of the fire dragon. A thick pillar of fire hit the paradise building directly, and soon the whole building was ablaze. Air looked at his work with satisfaction, his hands on his hips. He kept this posture for a long time, but he still didn't hear Nami's praise. Air turned to look at her in confusion. Nami looked at the burning building with her mouth wide open and a dull look on her face. What? Are you scared by me? Sure enough, I'm still too strong. Apostrophe. Just when Air was thinking this, Nami suddenly turned into a shark face, jumped up, grabbed Air's collar and roared, idiot. Arlong's treasure is still inside. That's tens of millions of Baileys. Nanny. Air turned around in shock, looked at the building that was about to collapse, and quickly shouted anxiously, hurry and put out the fire. Come and put out the fire. Losie's Bailey is still inside. Tens of millions. As soon as this was said, the nearby marines' eyes turned red, and they shouted while looking for various tools to start putting out the fire. Put out the fire quickly. Our bonus is still inside. Ignore this garbage. Come and put out the fire. Barrel. There is no barrel. The marines discarded the fisherman's body and started putting out the fire with tools. Air also quickly ran into the fire, activated his fruit ability and started sucking in the flames. Nami looked at everything in front of him and couldn't help but smile and whispered idiot. After working for a long time, everyone worked together to put out the fire. Fortunately, Arlong was thoughtful enough to store Bailey and all the treasures in a large safe, so everyone's Bailey survived. Seeing that Bailey had been saved, a group of sailors sang and danced. Air silently stuffed a stack of Baileys into his arms and scolded these unsatisfactory guys. What are you doing? Why don't you have something to celebrate? Why don't you quickly count them? Half of these Baileys will be returned to the civilians later, and the other half will be yours. After hearing the boss's reprimand, everyone stopped celebrating and got down to business. At this time, a young sailor silently raised his hand and asked, Lieutenant Colonel, what about the headquarters? What should I do? Air looked back at him, pointed at the collapsed building behind him and said, didn't you see that there was a fire just now? When I asked, Bailey was all burnt down. Besides, how free is the headquarters, that we still have to worry about such a trivial matter? The Marine scratched his head and thought so he silently joined the counting process. After saying that, Air ignored them and took Nami and others to Cocosia village. At this time, in Cocosia village, Nasha led her men and tied Arlong tightly with a rope and tied him to a pillar. Villagers were surrounding him. They looked at Arlong with pain and hatred, picked up rocks on the ground and threw them at it. Arlong is defeated. Long live Marine. My whole family was killed by this bastard. I'm going to smash it to death to avenge my family. Yes, let's smash it together. The villagers were furious and vented all their emotions over the years on Arlong. Nasha quickly sent someone to stop her. After the villagers calmed down a little, she continued, everyone, please be quiet. We will hold a public execution of Arlong later. You can go home and inform your relatives and friends to watch the execution together. Chapter 39. See you on the sea. When Air arrived at Cocosia village, nearly 1,000 people had gathered. Not only the village of Cocosia, but also villagers from other villages and towns on the island heard the news and came specially to watch Arlong's execution. Now that everyone was almost here, Air didn't talk nonsense. He walked onto the makeshift execution platform and said to the people below, I am Lieutenant Colonel Air of the Naval Headquarters. I hereby sentence Arlong, the captain of the Arlong pirates, to death. It will be executed immediately. After saying that, he nodded towards Nasha. Nasha understood and ordered 10 sailors to step forward. The soldiers walked up to Arlong and took aim with their guns. Arlong had just woken up from his coma at this time, squinting his swollen fish eyes and looking at the soldiers in front of him. It suddenly realized its situation and struggled with tears. Let me go. You lowly humans, I am a noble fishman. Let me go. Nasha ignored it, raised her hand and ordered, get ready. Stop. My brother is the 7th warrior under the king. Put. Bang bang bang. 10 gunshots were fired, and Arlong, who was tied to the pillar, spat out a mouthful of blood. His tearful eyes gradually became dull. Damn people. Before it finished speaking, it lowered its head completely and breathed its last breath. As Arlong died, enthusiastic cheers erupted in the square, and the villagers hugged each other and cried with joy. The Marines lowered their heads, not daring to look at the group of celebrating people. Arlong has been arrogant and domineering over the years. In addition to its own strength, Colonel Mouse, Marine's cancer, also contributed a lot. Air looked at the depressed soldiers and said angrily, "Why are you keeping your head down? It is inevitable for any large organization to have moths. Instead of being depressed here, it is better to think about those who are still suffering, and think about how to improve your strength and better protect them." The sailors raised their heads, listened to Air's words, and regained their target. They stood at attention and saluted neatly. Yes, everything is for justice. After Air's enlightenment, the soldiers put aside their grudges and joined the villagers in celebration. Air and others also met Ajian and her sister Nokigao under the introduction of Nami. The carnival lasted for 3 days before it ended, and it was time for Air and his party to leave. On the coast of Cocosia village, Nami looked at the people who were about to board the boat and said reluctantly, "Air, Nasha, Vivi, can't you stay a few more days?" Ace and Luffy shouted angrily when they heard that their names were not there. After Air knocked them down with one punch each, he bent down and rubbed Nami's head and said, "You are the best navigator. I believe we will meet again in the future." Nami lowered her head and said nothing. Nasha and Vivi stepped forward to hug her. Vivi's nose was red and her eyes were filled with tears as she said, "Nami, you must come to see me when you go to Alabasta." "Yeah, I will." "Little Nami, sister, here are some marine navigation books. The above is an introduction to the Grand Line. I hope it will be useful to you." Nasha took out the books she had prepared and put them in Nami's hands. "Thank you, Sister Nasha." Luffy, who was full of energy, climbed up and approached Nami, inviting him with a smile. "Hey, Nami, wait until I go to sea and be my navigator." Ace kicked him away and invited him seriously. "Nami, I will go to sea in 2 years. By then, I hope you can join my pirate group and become my navigator." "Oh, I was the one who invited you first." "Ace, don't steal my navigator." "Idiot, I want to become the pirate king." "Of course Nami wants to get on my ship." "Nani, it's me who wants to become the pirate king." "No way, it must be me." "It's me, it's me, it's me." It's so noisy. 2 idiots. Dang dang. Ah. It hurts. Air, what are you doing? Why did you hit me? Luffy covered his head and said unconvinced. "Idiot, if you openly discuss becoming a pirate in front of Marine, I won't beat you." "Damn it, I will definitely become a pirate." "Are you looking for a fight?" Nami looked at the group of people having fun and smiled with relief. She wiped away her tears, turned her eyes and said, "Hey, Ace, Luffy, if one of you can come up with 100 million Baileys, I will become that person's crew. How about tilde? 100 million Baileys." The two of them stared wide-eyed and couldn't figure out how much 100 million Bailey was with their fingers. Ace gave up thinking and reluctantly gave up his plan to invite Nami. On the other hand, Luffy on the side seemed to have a sudden enlightenment. He fumbled around in his pants for a while, then suddenly took out a gold necklace and handed it to Nami, smiling and saying, "Here's this for you, I'll make up the rest slowly." "Captain, please give me more advice in the future." Nami's eyes turned into stars. She grabbed the necklace and nodded directly to Luffy's invitation. "Yeah, I have my first partner." Luffy jumped up happily. The people on the side, Air, Ace, and Vivi, had their eyes widened with stupid expressions on their faces. Chapter 40 Parting. Air looked at the necklace for a few times, suddenly touched his pants pocket, then grabbed Luffy and roared, "Idiot, isn't this my trophy?" Luffy scratched his head and said stupidly, "Huh? Really? I picked this up on the ground." "You bastard, you used Marine's money to recruit pirates. Do you want to die?" Bang bang bang. Holding the pig's head, Luffy apologized to him sincerely. "I'm extremely sorry." "I'm sorry, what else do you want Marine to do if it's useful?" He cursed angrily and threw Luffy to the ground. Air was still angry and said angrily, "When you become a pirate, I will definitely report to my headquarters to offer a high reward, and the whole world will hunt you down." "A high reward? Really?" Luffy immediately became excited when he heard that he had a reward. Hash. 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 Ace covered his forehead and whispered, "Idiot." Nami. "Goodbye tilde." "Nami, I'll come back to find you after I go to sea." "See you on the sea." Nami. The warship slowly sailed away from the shore. Vivi, Ace and Luffy, who was all covered with hair, lay on the railing and waved goodbye to Nami. Nami also waved and responded loudly, "Goodbye everyone." Until the warship was completely gone, Nami still stood there, holding the book and looking into the distance quietly. Nokigao came up from behind her, looked at the endless sea, and asked, "Why don't you follow them? Isn't it your dream to travel around the world and draw a map of the world?" Nami smiled and shook his head. "No, my knowledge is not enough, and I want to find my own partner and go out to sea for adventure." "Partner? Are you talking about that idiot Luffy?" "Haha, isn't it interesting that the captain is an idiot?" After saying that, Nami jumped away and left. Nokigao tilted his head without knowing why, and then hurriedly chased after him. "Wait for me." On the sea, Air hung up the phone with Marshal Sengoku. He had just reported what the rat had done intact. After being silent for a while, Sengoku asked Air to escort the rat to a nearby branch, and he would handle the rest. Despite Sengoku's assurance, Air still felt very unhappy. Ask him to tell me that if something like a rat is simply shot, why should there be a trial? He stood up and ordered the soldiers to take the mouse out. Then he found a fishing rod and modified it. After the mouse was brought up, Air tied him up with a fishing line without saying a word, threw him into the sea amidst his pleas for mercy and the eyes of everyone watching the show, and started fishing. Sea kings should like rat meat *. After sailing for several days, Air and others finally returned to Windmill Village. After sending Luffy and Ace down, Air did not stop here but planned to return to the Grand Line. Luffy, Ace, let's say goodbye here. Remember to say hello to Miss Makino and the village elder for me. Air stood on the edge of the boat and waved goodbye to the two people below. Vivi was also wiping tears at the side. In a short period of time, 3 of her peers were separated one after another, and she felt very sad. Although the two were a little reluctant to leave, they smiled and waved to them. Luffy smiled stupidly and asked Air, Vivi, are you really not going to be my partner? You are quite interesting. Idiot, I'm a marine, how can I join you? As for Vivi, if you can convince her, I don't care. Hee, it's settled then. Hey, Vivi, I'll come find you after I enter the Grand Line. Vivi wiped away her tears, smiled and stuck out her tongue at Luffy. Idiot, I will not become a pirate. Luffy curled his lips and said unwillingly, I will never give up. I must have you as my partner. Air watched quietly from the side and did not speak. This stupid boy wants to kidnap my Vivi, so go ahead and dream. I almost looked away. Air slapped his head, took out a small notebook from his pocket, and threw it to Ace. This is Marine 6 styles. They are super physical skills that can only be learned by the elites of this department. They are given to you as a gift. After Ace took it, he opened it curiously and looked at it. Then he thanked Air with a surprised look on his face. Thank you very much. I will accept this gift. HMPH as long as you like it. Then, Ace, Luffy. See you on the Grand Line. Yeah, see you Grand Line. 2. Haha. Air turned around and came to the bow of the ship. Boys, let's go. Target Grand Line. Idiots. Say yes, Captain. Have you forgotten what I said so quickly? Yes, Captain. The noisy warship gradually moved away. The two people on the spot waited until the ship was completely out of sight before walking towards the village. Luffy, let's see who can run back to the tavern first. Okay, I won't lose. Okay, listen to me count. 5, 4, 3, let's go. Before they could finish counting, Ace ran out first. Hey, Ace, you are cheating. Haha, you are too stupid. Chapter 41 Asking for help. After parting ways with Luffy, Air and his party recrossed the Calm Belt and returned to the Grand Line. During the few days of sailing in the Calm Belt, the unfortunate rat was surprised that no Sea Kings came to eat it. Air even wondered if the Sea Kings thought this guy was disgusting and had no desire to eat it. So he simply found a reason to shoot this disgusting thing and threw it into the sea. Then he reported the matter to Marshal Sengoku with the excuse of being acclimatized. Fortunately, it was just a piece of garbage that died. Sengoku didn't pursue the matter and just warned him to pay attention next time. Air naturally agreed. After sailing for so long, Air has gained nothing except catching a few pieces of garbage with a bounty of 1 or 2 million in the East Blue. Just when he was bored and started playing landlords with Vivian Nasher, a communications soldier hurried over with a phone bug. Lieutenant Colonel Air, there's an emergency call. Upon hearing this, Air quickly threw away the tattered cards in his hand, stood up and took the phone bug. Moses, this is Marine Lieutenant Colonel Air. May I ask what happened over there? On the other side of the conversation, on a warship that was under fire, a man was hiding in the corner and waiting anxiously. Are you connected? Great. Our army is under attack. The opponent is the great pirate White Bear Quest with a bounty of 120 million. We can't hold on any longer. Please support us as soon as possible. The location is 102 million. I understand. Hold on. Support will be coming soon. After speaking, Air hung up the phone and ordered the soldiers to rush to the fighting site with all their strength. On the other side, after hanging up the phone, the man quickly ran onto the deck and reported to a young female officer who was directing the battle. Major Hina, we got in touch. The other party said they would come immediately for support. Hina, Air's senior sister, was holding a cigarette in her mouth and looking solemnly at the huge pirate ship heading towards her not far away. She couldn't help but feel slightly relieved when she heard that there was support. You're lucky. Hina is curious. Who came to support? An ordinary school officer can't stop a big pirate with a reward of more than 100 million. The man was stunned, thinking of Air's self-report just now, and said without confidence, well, I just remember it was a lieutenant colonel from the headquarters. Major Hina, what should we do? Hina gritted her teeth and threw the cigarette into the sea. There is nothing you can do. You continue to contact support. I will find a way to hold them back first. The man saluted and ran back to continue calling for help. On a pirate ship dozens of meters away, a pirate observed the warship in front of him with a telescope. As his eyes swept across, Hina's young and beautiful figure caught his eye. "Captain, Captain, I found a super pretty girl." Following his words, a 3-meter-tall, hairy gorilla came over. X took the telescope handed over by his younger brother and looked in the direction he pointed. Sure enough, the younger brother didn't lie to him. A beautiful officer wearing a burgundy suit with an open chest, revealing her white snow, was commanding the warship heroically. The first time Quest saw her, he was firmly attracted by her beauty. "Boys, stop the bombardment. Luffy wants to capture this beauty alive and enjoy it." Hearing his words, the pirates cheered like ghosts, howling like wolves. The shelling stopped. Quickly sailed towards the warship. This change of the other party was also noticed by Hina. Although she didn't know what the other party was planning to do, she knew she couldn't let them get close, otherwise everything would be over. Black Gun. Hina is a cage fruit user who can create barriers from anywhere on her body to lock her opponents in. At the same time, it can also create iron guns to sink the opponent's ships. The hardness of its iron guns exceeds that of steel. A 3-meter-long spear condensed in her hand and she threw it towards the opposite side. X looked at the spear that was fired at him and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. "This girl still has some skills. Let's leave it to you, Lebby." "It's up to me, Captain." A thin man who looked ordinary, grabbed an iron rod, jumped up from the boat, and knocked away the incoming spear with a casual blow. Lebby turned over and fell back to the deck elegantly. The younger brothers looked at his handsome skills and immediately cheered in admiration. As expected of the deputy captain, still so dashing, as expected of a man with a bounty of 80 million. "He is so handsome. Sir Lebby is so handsome." During the conversation, a strong man shyly bumped into Lebby's arms. "Honey, you are amazing." Holding him, Lebby smiled excitedly. "Baby, I will reward you when the battle is over. Go back to the room and wait for me." After saying that, he reached out and patted his butt. The strong man covered his face shyly, stamped his feet in embarrassment, and ran back to the cabin. If Air were here, he would cover his eyes in pain and ask God why he allowed himself to see such a disgusting scene. But the pirates on the ship were used to it, and they all started making fun of him. Some people even looked at the cabin with jealous eyes. Chapter 42 Danger. "Lebby, it's still the old rules. Beautiful women belong to me, and strong men belong to you." X licked his lips and said excitedly. Lebby looked at him with admiration and said shyly, "Captain, you know, people like you the most." X wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, laughed twice, and casually brushed it off. "Really, the captain is so ruthless, but it is your order, so I will definitely complete it." "Hey, you are as reassuring as ever. Kids, let's make a scene." "Oh, bang!" Exclamation mark. The pirate ship slammed into the warship. The pirates waved their long swords, jumped on the warship, and fought with the Marines. "Shoot! Don't let them get close. Scumbags, don't underestimate Marines' justice." "Brothers, fight them." Even though there was an obvious numerical disadvantage compared to the pirates, the sailors still blocked them regardless of their own safety. Although the situation seems to be stable, Hina knows that the other party's cadres are still waiting and watching. If they wait for them to take action, the current situation will collapse in an instant. "No, we can't just watch." With her thoughts spinning, Hina turned her hands into fences and threw them towards the pirates. The moment the fence touched them, it turned into an iron ring, binding everyone tightly. Threshold. "Damn it, what is this thing? I can't get rid of it at all." It was that female Marine who did it. "She has demon fruit power." "Asshole, let Luffy go." The pirates were tied up and unable to move, and could only scream crazily. Marine on the side saw this and quickly waved his weapon to hit the enemies one by one. "Oh! Major Hina is taking action." "Brothers, charge!" The Marines seemed to have been given a shot in the arm and fought harder against the enemy. Hina also rushed into the battle group and killed a large number of pirates with one move. "Oh, I'm not bad at it." "Captain, it's time for us sisters to take action." X looked at Hina's figure and drooled greedily. Kaido said, "Well, go ahead and bring that girl back intact." Sister, come on." "Okay, sister." The two held hands, jumped on the warship, and rushed towards Hina. "Lady Duo." Hina sensed something was wrong, but it was too late to hide now. The two of them kicked Hina hard in the abdomen and kicked her away along with several soldiers behind her. It didn't stop until it broke the mast on the warship. Cough, cough. Hina spat out blood foam and looked at the person solemnly. The two wore the same pink dress and short skirts, with black heels and sexy black stockings wrapped around their thickly hairy thighs. Blush is applied to the masculine face. Lipstick was smeared on the thick sausage mouth. The two of them held hands and struck a seductive pose, looking very disgusting. Sexy sisters appear. 2. Seeing the two of them, a certain sailor couldn't help shouting in horror, "Ah, it's the Shemal sisters, Cohen and Cork, who each have a bounty of 40 million. The two of them cast their gaze over, and Sister Cohen pulled out a knife, flicked it, and threw it at him. The Marine soldier screamed, covering his heart with a flying knife inserted into it. and fell down. "The two of you are real women. It's really rude to call me a Shemal." "That's right. Since you have offended me, let us go to hell to make amends." The Shemal sisters covered their mouths and laughed at the dead sailor. "Arsehole." Hina looked at the dead sailors and attacked the two men angrily. However, the two sisters jumped to avoid the iron bars that were sweeping towards them. "It's not over yet." Black spear formation. Hina aimed her hands at the two of them, and two iron spears grew out of her palms and shot at them. Cohen stood in front of his sister and waved two short swords to knock away the iron guns. After he landed, sharp knives suddenly appeared from the toes of his feet. He stood on one foot, and with the two knives in his hands, he spun like a top, and rushed towards Hina. Lady Middle. Sexy ballet. Seeing that she couldn't resist, Hina used Sha and jumped to the right. "Don't forget that I still have a concubine." Kirk came to her side at some point, took out a mace that came out of nowhere and smashed her towards Cohen. At the critical moment, Hina created an iron rod in front of her and barely blocked the opponent's attack, but she still had a few more wounds on her body. "No, although the bounty for these two people is not high, but when they work together, I can't defeat them with my strength." Hina covered her injured arm and fell into a passive state. At this time, she felt a little regretful. She regretted that she did not listen to Teacher Zephyr's words and strengthen physical training, but relied too much on the fruit. Before she could take a few breaths, the two sisters struck her again with a storm of attacks. Sister Cohen is good at knife skills, while Sister Coke is better at stick skills. The two of them, one on the left and the other on the right, cooperated tacitly, forcing Hina to move around and try her best to parry. Based on the current situation, although Hina can still hold on for a while, anyone with a discerning eye can see that the final victory will definitely belong to the Shemal sisters. At this moment, a deafening roar suddenly came from the distance. Both sides of the war stopped their attacks in unison and looked in the direction of the sound. Chapter 43. The Hero Saves the Beauty. 10 minutes ago, Air looked at the sea with a telescope. BLU. Damn it, it seems that the other party's situation is not good. The call for help has not been disconnected. Air looked at the phone bug that kept calling and said in an irritated tone. Nasha also looked worried and looked around eagerly. Suddenly, a small dot appeared in the telescope. Nasha took a closer look and saw the familiar marine warship. She hurriedly called Air, pointed in that direction and said, "Air, look, there are warships fighting the enemy over there." Air quickly picked up the telescope and looked over there. Unfortunately, the distance was too far. He could only see two ships entangled together. He didn't know what the specific situation was. Seeing this, Air didn't care about anything else and ordered Nasha and the others to continue on their way. He stepped on moonwalk to high altitude, activated his fruit power and turned into a red dragon. He roared, flapped his broad wings and rushed towards that direction. The people who stayed on the warship opened their mouths and widened their eyes as they watched the dragon leave in surprise. Today's scene is probably something they will never forget for the rest of their lives. Air was flying in the sky. When he was about a kilometer away, his ultra-distant vision allowed him to immediately lock onto the familiar figure on the warship. The level of visibility enhanced to A level also covered the opponent, and every move on the warship was reflected in his mind. Sensing Hina's current situation, Air couldn't help but speed up. At the same time, a loud dragon roar accompanied Conquerors who swept through everything, crushing the entire audience and announcing his arrival. Through his deliberate control, Conquerors only targets pirates. The powerful momentum swept across, and most of the pirates lost consciousness and fell to the ground in a faint. Only Iron Rod Lebby, the Shemal sisters and a few small carders knelt on the ground and maintained their consciousness. Captain Quest shed a drop of cold sweat. The pupils in his eyes dilated, and he screamed. It turned out to be Conquerors. And it looks like this. Where did this monster come from? Having been in Grand Line for several years, he is not an unfamiliar newcomer. When this domineering aura swept across, he recognized it immediately. Compared to Quest's fear, Hina couldn't help but relax after seeing the giant dragon in the sky. After tying up the trembling Shemal sister beside her with her abilities, she sat down on the ground and smiled as if she had survived the disaster. "Hey, Major Hina, long time no see. How are you? Are you happy to see me?" The 40-meter-long giant dragon greeted Hina with a playful tone. Hina lit the cigarette, took a puff, and said with a smile, "Long time no see, Air." "Hina feels relieved to see you." "Ha ha ha, it seems that I, the hero, came to save the beauty at the right time." After saying that, Air turned his attention to X and the others, with a cold light shining in his lantern-sized dragon eyes. "White Cat Quest, right? You dare to hurt my beautiful senior sister. Have you thought about how to die?" Quiz swallowed, although he wanted to refute that he was a white bear, not a white cat. But after comparing the body shapes of the two sides, he still explained in a nonchalant manner. This, Mr. Marine, this is just an accident." "Is there any misunderstanding between us?" X stammered nonsense that even he didn't believe, and kept praying to the gods for blessing. Perhaps because the gods of this world are those stupid pigs from the celestial dragons, his prayers went unanswered. Air opened his mouth, revealing a pair of sharp fangs, and his smile was very ferocious and terrifying. He was too lazy to talk nonsense, and blasted the pirate ship with the roar of a fire dragon. The entire ship was directly engulfed in fire, turned into a huge fireball, and gradually sank in the sea. At the last moment, Quest jumped onto the warship with Lebby and escaped. He looked at the giant dragon in the sky in horror, and exclaimed with tears streaming down his face, "Monster! You are a monster! How can humans have such power?" Lebby on the side was even more unbearable. At this time, he sat down on the ground, and his pants were already wet. Air transformed into a human animal form and landed on the deck. Looking at Lebby, who was so frightened that he wet his pants, he glared at him with contempt. Seeing that he didn't respond, he turned his attention back to X. X looked at Air's human animal form and compressed it through the return of life. He was only more than 3 meters tall. For some reason, the fear in his heart lessened a lot. He mustered up his courage, activated his fruit power, and turned into a 6-meter-tall white bear and roared. "Old, Lozy is the white bear with a bounty of 102 million. Marine bastard, go to hell." Air picked his ears and dodged the bear claws swung by X, clenching his right paw. Kai taunted, "Little cutie, let's have a taste of my fist." The iron fist of the fire dragon. As he spoke, flames formed on his hands, wrapping armament haki at the same time. He exerted force with his legs, leaving 2 craters on the spot, then quickly came to Quest and punched him hard in the face. His cheek was smashed out of shape, and his 6-meter-long body flew directly into the sea and slowly sank. In order to prevent him from jumping out and committing suicide in the future, Air also flew high into the sky and landed dozens of tempest kicks. After his heartbeat completely stopped under the sensation of seeing and hearing, Air stopped attacking and returned to the ship. Chapter 44 Go Home. Wiping the non-existent sweat on his head, Air bypassed Lebby and the Shamal sisters who were pretending to be dead, came to Hina, stretched out his hand and joked, "Major Hina, I haven't seen you in a few years. Can't you even beat 2 perverts who are neither male nor female?" Grabbing Air's hand and standing up, Hina made a disdainful sound and said angrily, "You're too arrogant, kid." Hina is very unhappy. Air grinned, and ordered to the sailors who had not recovered yet, "I am Lieutenant Colonel Air. Why are you still standing there? Why don't you quickly treat the wounded and throw all these garbage pirates into the sea?" The sailors were shocked and immediately followed Air's instructions. Hina frowned and said, "Leave these 3 with bounties on their heads. Their heads can still be claimed by the headquarters. It would be a pity to throw them away." Air raised his eyebrows and resisted. "The man can stay. But forget about these 2 who are neither men nor women. I feel sick when I look at them." "Really, it turns out that Air you like this type. Hina misjudged you." Hina looked at him with a look of garbage, which made Air feel uncomfortable. "You, what do you mean?" "Haha, I won't tell you." After saying that, she turned around and left to find a doctor for treatment. Air was left standing there, confused and thinking about the meaning of her words. A sailor was still struggling for a while, then he came over and whispered something in his ear. "Nani, he's gay." Without saying a word, Air came to the trapped Lebby with his razor and kicked him into the sea. The sailors were surprised and wanted to reach out to stop him, but unfortunately it was too late. Lebby spit out blood in the air and fell into the sea unwillingly. He secretly swore in his heart that he would never be gay again in his next life. He picked up a piece of cloth and wiped it on his shoes. Thinking that the shoes had just come into close contact with a gay man, Air had the urge to throw them away. Fortunately, at this time, Nasha and her men arrived in a warship, interrupting Air's thoughts. After instructing Nasha to direct the soldiers to help treat the wounded, Air walked into the cabin and found Hina in the infirmary. As soon as he opened the door, Air saw a female doctor dressing Hina's wound. Hina took off her shirt, wearing only her underwear, and sat on a chair smoking silently. Hearing the sound of the door opening, the 2 of them turned their heads at the same time and met Air's eyes. The scene was a little awkward for a moment. Bang! After closing the door, Air pretended not to see anything, turned around and left. "Come in." Hina's intellectual voice came from inside. Since she invited him, Air did not hesitate, opened the door and walked in openly. He sat down opposite her, stared at her chest intently, and said, "Major Hina, your warship cannot sail for the time being, so why not get on my ship? I will take you to Alabasta to rest for a while, and then you can return to the G-34 branch." Feeling his burning gaze, Hina casually picked up a roll of bandages and threw it at his face, warning, "Kid, where are your eyes?" After saying that, her tone changed and she continued, "In that case, let me follow your arrangements first." Throwing the bandage away, Air didn't hear what she said at all. He just nodded blankly and continued to appreciate the beautiful scenery in front of him. Hina grabbed bottles and jars and threw them at Air crazily. "If you find out, get out of here." Air dodged around and ran out in a panic, not forgetting to close the door. "HMPH little pervert." Hina snorted coldly and motioned for the doctor to continue. The female doctor lowered her head and did not dare to look into her eyes. Thinking about how the 2 of them looked just now, countless scenes flashed through her mind, and she had even imagined the scene in which they would get married and have children in the future. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but giggle. Hina looked at her and coughed slightly, which frightened the female doctor and quickly bandaged her up. When Hina got dressed, put on her cloak again, and came out of the infirmary. The sailors had packed up the deck and boarded Air's warship. The two boats are also connected with ropes at the bow, and they are ready to go at any time. She jumped directly onto Air's warship with the doctor. When she arrived at the bow, Air had already set the table, poured red wine and was waiting for her. Stepping forward and sitting down, Hina crossed her legs, took a sip of red wine and said, "You really know how to enjoy it." Hina is very envious. Instructing Nasha to set sail, Air smiled and said, "They were all captured from pirates. You can take some of them away if you like." "You're welcome, Major Hina." Hina raised her eyebrows, put down her wineglass, and said displeasedly, "Since we first met, you have been called a major." "What, are you proud of becoming a lieutenant colonel?" Air looked aggrieved and said as if he had been wronged, "How could it be? This is just a normal title." "You think too much, Major Hina." After saying that, he added, "Oh, no, counting this time, plus the heavy boxer Fadley whom I captured with a bounty of 88 million, maybe it won't be long before you call me Colonel Air." Seeing his triumphant look, Hina felt unhappy and couldn't help but make some sarcastic remarks. Air didn't tolerate her either, so she also choked back. Just like that, the two started arguing as if no one was watching. In the room, Vivi looked at Hina chatting and laughing with Air through the window, biting her handkerchief jealously. "Damn it, I'm just a little taller and my chest is a little bigger. When I grow up, I will definitely surpass her." Chapter 45 Crocodile. The subsequent voyage went smoothly, and Air and his party returned to Alabasta smoothly, landing at a port deep in the Sundola River, close to the capital Albana. This is a small port newly built in recent months, mainly for marine garrison. A decent base has also been built next to the port, probably for soldiers to rest and train. As soon as we got off the boat, we were greeted warmly by an old man who looked like he was in charge. "Mr. Lieutenant Colonel, the marine camp His Majesty the King ordered us to build has been basically completed. You are here just in time. I will take you to visit it." Air was slightly interested, nodded and followed him into the camp. After a general visit, Air was very satisfied. Although this base is small, it is well equipped. Training grounds, dormitories, canteens, storage rooms, weapons depots, etc. are all available. Air encouraged the person in charge, and after leaving the soldiers to familiarize themselves with the new environment, he took Vivi and Hina to the palace. Hina was a little resistant at first. She also felt that it was not appropriate to enter and exit a country's palace at will without prior notification. Who knows, after a few people arrived at the palace, the passing king's troops would respectfully salute them. After meeting King Cobra, what happened next surprised her even more. Air ignored etiquette at all, kicked open the study door, and walked in swaggeringly. "Yo, uncle, I'm back." "Oh, you are back. What a ghost." "Do you think I would say that?" "Idiot." Cobra was full of anger, grabbed a thick book and threw it at her. "You bastard, can't you knock on the door properly?" He caught the thrown book and started reading it. As he looked at it, Air made a strange sound. As expected of a king, the books he reads are so unique. Cobra appeared in front of Air in an instant and snatched the book away. Hina was so fast that she didn't even react. She glanced at the title of the book curiously. The cover of Things I Had to Say with My Noble Lady still showed a beautiful mature young woman. Cobra hid the book in his arms and coughed twice. When he noticed Vivi holding Air, he immediately turned into a loving old father, rushed up to her, rubbed her little face, and told her how he had missed her for so many days. "Vivi-chan, Dad misses you so much. How are you doing? Are you hurt? Air didn't bully you, right?" Vivi pushed her old father away in disgust, put her hands on her hips and said angrily, "Dad, I'm not a child anymore, and didn't you see there are guests? It's so rude." "Really? Vivi doesn't need me anymore." Cobra covered his heart as if he had been hit by an arrow, hugging his legs in despair and drawing circles with his back to the crowd. Air couldn't stand it anymore looking at him looking so arrogant. He pulled Hina aside who had not yet understood the situation, interrupted Cobra's thoughts, and introduced to him, "Uncle, this is Hina, my senior at Marine School. She is going to take some rest in Alabasta recently." After saying that, he ignored Cobra and introduced to Hina, "This is His Majesty Cobra, the king of this country." "Well, a serious daughter-in-law." Hina bowed to Cobra seriously and introduced herself formally. Cobra also came out of his disappointment, looked at Hina seriously, and then looked at Air with murderous eyes. He stepped forward quickly, pulled Air to the corner, hooked his neck and asked fiercely, "Bastard boy, this can't be your lover in Marine. Bastard boy, if you dare to do anything that's sorry for Vivi, I won't let you go even if I'm a ghost." Air looked at him like he was an idiot. "Idiot, if we are really lovers, I will bring him to you." Cobra rubbed his chin with his right hand and thought for a while, and felt the same. Then he reacted again, pinched Air's neck, and roared angrily, "Damn it, you kid really had such thoughts." Air, whose neck was strangled, stuck out his tongue and raised his hands to apologize. "Yes, I'm sorry, I was wrong." Shaking this hateful brat aside, Cobra sighed helplessly. "Forget it, this is between you and Vivi, as long as you don't treat Vivi badly." Air's ears perked up and she looked at him in disbelief. After he came to his senses, he quickly rubbed his hands in flattery and said, "As expected of His Majesty the King, You are so magnanimous. She rolled her eyes at him angrily, and Cobra felt jealous to the point of separation. Damn it, why doesn't a handsome guy like me have such good luck? I'm so envious. The two murmured for a while, and then Cobra came back proudly, while I was like a flattering traitor, saying a series of good words behind him. Okay, you all go and have a good rest. You must be exhausted after such a long voyage. Air greeted the two girls with a smile and planned to leave. At this time, Cobra stopped him again, picked up a newspaper from the table and handed it to him. He didn't pay attention, took the newspaper and said with a smile, "Then, Your Majesty the King, let's go down and rest first." After saying that, he waved his hand and closed the door. After arranging Hina's room, Air returned to the bedroom to coax Vivi to sleep. At this time, he lay on the bed and had time to read the newspaper. As soon as he saw the title, Air sat up from the bed in surprise. Hero, 7 Warlords of the Sea Middle. Crocodile. Chapter 46. Meet Lao Sha. Air has been a little irritable since reading the report last night. If he has watched the anime, he knows that Crocodile is not an upright hero like what the news says. He catches pirates in order to protect the people. This is all bullshit. His main purpose is to implement the Utopia plan, usurp the throne of Alabaster, and find the legendary ancient weapon, Pluton, who can destroy an island with one blow. To this end, he captured pirates and established a positive image of himself in the hearts of the people. At the same time, dancing powder was secretly used to prevent it from raining in the country except the capital Albana for 3 years. Inducing the masses, they put the blame for the lack of rain on the head of King Cobra, thus triggering a civil war that made the people of the country miserable and suffered heavy casualties. When Air traveled through time and found out he was in Alabaster, he regarded Crocodile as an imaginary enemy. He joined Marine and trained hard, and he also wanted to defeat Crocodile when he faced him one day in the future. But what he didn't expect was that this guy would come to Alabaster so early and start building a good reputation for himself. I'm actually here, so I'll let you see the results of my years of practice. System points. Ding tilde. Nefertari Dr. Sex, male. Age, 13. Height, 173. Personal abilities. Physique A, 17,762 30,000. Swordsmanship A, 912 30,000. Physical skills A, 1,202 30,000. Haki, armament Hakar 214 30,000. Observation Hakar 229 30,000. Conquerors Hakib 1,982 10,000. Skill moves, Shaver, 9,082 10,000. Moonwalk, 8,327 10,000. Tempest Kick, 8,654 10,000. Finger Pistol, 7,857 10,000. Iron Bodic, 4,612 5,000. Paper Artsk, 4,131 5,000. Devil Fruit, Dragon Fruit A, 10,232 30,000. Experience points, 31,900. Overall rating, A+, stronger than most Vice Admiral, with a few trash from East Blue and White Bear Quest and his carders. Air has more than 30,000 experience. So much experience, let's maximize the fruits and constitution, and upgrade to S first. Ding, it is detected that the host's physique has reached S level, and the system will issue additional rewards. Ding, I think host eliminates the side effects of devil fruit, and at the same time can take another additional fruit or take away the ability of one fruit. Puff. Air, who was eating, spit out all the food in his mouth. Without waiting for Vivi sitting next to him to ask, he eagerly called the system. Hey, system, what's happening here? Why didn't you tell me earlier about this kind of reward? Then when my swordsmanship reaches S, will you give me a supremely sharp sword? Ding, no, the system will only provide rewards after the host's physical fitness is improved, and each level of physical fitness can add another fruit ability. So, with the Fire Dragon fruit, I can gain a total of 4 abilities. Ding, yes. FK. This is not taking off. With the addition of 4 fruits, Lozy is invincible. I need to think about it. Vivi looked at Air, who started to giggle while eating, tilted her head in confusion, and waved her hand in front of his eyes. Seeing that he still didn't respond, he simply leaned into his ear and shouted loudly, Air. The quiet soprano scared Air so much that he quit the fantasy. He rubbed his ears and looked at Vivi in confusion. What's wrong? It's so loud all of a sudden. Seeing his confused look, Vivi crossed her arms angrily and said, What are you thinking about? I called you several times and ignored me. Air scratched his head in embarrassment and found an excuse to fool her. After finishing the meal, Air asked Vivi to go out and asked her to talk to Cobra and Hina, and then left without Vivi's reluctance. Stepping on the moonwalk and flying towards Crocodile's location in the newspaper, Air asked the system a question in his mind. System, how should I get the fruit? Can the ability taken away be given to others? Ding, after the host kills the ability user, he can plunder the opponent's ability into his own body by touching it. Additionally, the ability to loot is not shareable. Sai sighed in disappointment. He thought that after killing someone, the system would regenerate a fruit, so that he could use this bug to hunt down the ability users crazily and obtain a lot of devil fruit. What a pity! While chatting with the system, Air arrived in the Rainland, which is also the base camp of Crocodile in the original work. But it's just that Crocodile hasn't opened a casino here yet, and the Rainland is not as prosperous as it will be in the future. Air used observation haki to sense it, and soon he caught an unusual aura. In a temporary office, an intelligence officer was reporting intelligence to Crocodile. Boss, the target has entered the Grand Line from West Blue. Should we send someone to recruit him? Crocodile, who had a slicked back hair, looked at the information sent by his subordinates. After being silent for a while, he said, I need this woman's ability to recruit her to me at all costs. Yes. The intelligence agent left directly after giving the street order. Crocodile was left smoking a cigar and thinking about his plan. At this time, a young voice suddenly sounded in the quiet office. Nico Robin, are the 7 warlords of the sea interested in her too? Chapter 47 Fierce Battle. Who? Crocodile summoned a sandstorm in his hand and threw it in the direction of the sound. Wherever the sandstorm passed, everything was devoured and shattered. Air dodged, left the range of the sandstorm, and greeted Lao Sha warmly, who was staring at him. Oh, what a passion, Mr. Crocodile. Seeing the person coming, Crocodile remembered the information he had read when he first came here, and immediately recognized him. With a gloomy face, he asked, Naval Headquarters Lieutenant Colonel Air, I wonder what you want from me? Air wasn't surprised that Crocodile recognized him. After all, he is also a member of the royal family, and he has not hidden the fact that he joined Marine. For a planned and premeditated careerist like Crocodile, it is normal to get to know the important people in Alabasta before taking action. I really didn't expect that my fame would be so famous. Even the legendary 7 warlords of the sea know me. Hearing Air's teasing, Crocodile said impatiently, Kid, tell me your purpose, otherwise I won't care about Marine's face. Walking to the only sofa in the office and sitting down, Air crossed his legs and asked weirdly, my purpose? I should be the one to ask you this. Dangdang Shikai Bukai, why are you going to Alabasta when you are not staying in the New World? Do you have some ulterior secret? Crocodile's face became even more gloomy. He took a puff of his cigar and said slowly, Kid, what I want to do has nothing to do with you. Shikai Bukai has privileges issued by the world government. Marine has nothing to do with us. Marine can't control it, but as the royal family of Alabasta, I also have the right to ask you. If you are so resistant to answering, you don't really have any bad intentions. Air leaned back on the sofa, looked at him playfully, and continued, it's also related to Nico Robin, the historian. Let me guess. It's not about Alabasta's secret. The legendary ancient weapon Pluton. Crocodile's pupils dilated, and the moment Air finished speaking, he couldn't help but turn his right hand into a sand blade and strike hard at her. Air quickly dodged, stepped on it, and moved towards Crocodile at high speed. Before Air could get closer, Crocodile slapped the ground. The entire floor quickly dried and cracked, turning into sand and gradually spreading around. Seeing that he couldn't stay on the ground, Air crashed through the ceiling and flew out. Crocodile saw this and hurriedly chased after him. The two chased and fled, and soon left the city. 10 minutes later, when Air saw no one around, he turned around and kicked behind him with a Tempest kick. Lao Sha did not dodge and let Tempest kicks fall on him. His body turned into sand after being hit, and then condensed back into its original shape after the slash passed through his body. Oh, elementalization? What a terrifying ability. Lao Sha's face darkened. Air's attitude made him very unhappy. After scanning the surrounding environment, he suddenly smiled sinisterly and said, Kid, I don't know where you got the information, but it doesn't matter. As long as I catch you and torture out Pluton's information, my plan will be completed. I also want to thank you for saving me so much time. Air raised his eyebrows, his muscles began to swell, dragon scales grew on his body, and he transformed into a human and animal form. If you can do it, just do it. The roar of the fire dragon, Shallan, the fire pillar and the tornado turned into sand collided and cancelled each other out. Air turned on his wisdom color to the maximum, wrapped his fists in armed color, and rushed towards Lao Sha, the iron fist of the fire dragon. Lao Sha waved his hand and summoned a wall of sand to block the attack, but it was broken by Air's punch. Nani, it actually broke my sand shield. Lao Sha looked at Air in surprise as he broke through the sand shield and came towards him, and subconsciously wanted to avoid it by elementalizing himself. But Air was too fast, and a fist trapped in armor hit him firmly in the face. He flew backwards like a cannonball and fell to the ground in a panic, with his long, stylish hair hanging loosely on the back of his head. You have the Phantom Beast fruit and mastered the weapon color? No wonder you dare to challenge me. But you think I only have this level of skills? Arc-shaped sand dune. A crescent-shaped sand knife slashed at Air, and Air flew into the air subconsciously. But Lao Sha had already planned and flew over his head in advance. Get down here, heavy Shallan. Air crossed his arms and blocked the blow with his upper body covered in armor. but the body fell into the desert under the strong wind. Lao Sha pressed his hands on the desert and controlled the flow of underground water veins, forming a large area of quicksand that engulfed her. Desert Sunflower. TCH, you really can't underestimate him. Air, who was lying at the bottom of the pit, flapped his wings vigorously and broke out of the sand pit. He pulled out the chindong from his waist, wrapped it with weapons and high-temperature flames, and launched a dozen slashes in succession. Then, regardless of Lao Sha's response, he flew high into the sky, held the sword upright in front of him, rotated his whole body at high speed through his wings, and aimed the sword tip at him and shot it out like a bullet. Lao Sha used the sand blade to scatter the incoming slash, looked at Air who was shot straight at him, and said disdainfully, "This idiotic attack can't hurt me." After saying that, he turned into sand and moved aside to avoid it. Air crashed into the sand as he expected, but just a second before landing, he forcibly stopped his spinning body, stood on the sand with his legs, and drew a circle with Chang-Dong sweep. The violent wind generated by the rotational inertia combined with its own high-temperature flames formed a huge fire tornado. The secret of one sword-style firestorm! Chapter 48. Please don't die. The high temperature of nearly 2000 degrees scorched the sand, and the sand began to crystallize rapidly. The elemental Lao Sha resisted the blazing flames, and the terrifying temperature gave him the illusion of being melted into glass. Air didn't stop, and when Lao Sha didn't react, he slashed at his neck with the knife. Ding! The fire tornado dissipated, and Lao Sha, who was panting and almost turned into glass, blocked Air's attack with a golden hook. Ho ho ho! Who do you think Lozi is? Lozi is 7 warlords of the sea, Sir Crocodile. Heavy Shalon. A terrifying sandstorm formed out of thin air, and strong wind blew so hard that Air couldn't open his eyes. Lao Sha took the opportunity to retreat, and turned his hands into sand blades to attack Air. Fortunately, Air was able to dodge quickly due to his strong sense of sight. That's it again. Don't you know that such words are a curse? Lao Sha frowned, not understanding what this kid was talking about. He waved his hand and released the desert diamond sword, and the sand blades cut through the sand and slashed towards Air. Lodia is trouble. Air secretly complained in his heart after swiping his sword to disperse Lao Sha's attack. Hey, Crocodile, to show respect, I'm going to use my full strength. Life is returned and solved. The half-dragon-shaped body suddenly grew by a section, reaching 7 meters. Ignoring Lao Sha's increasingly solemn expression, Air returned the knife to its sheath, squatted down, held the handle of the knife with one hand and began to accumulate strength. As soon as he saw this posture, Lao Sha knew what he was going to do, and quickly swung his sand blade to stop him. Watching the attack approaching, Air took his time. His sharp eyes were fixed on Lao Sha, and the moment the sand blade was about to hit, he moved. Shaved, armed color entangled. The secret of Ito-style dragon flame flash. The two figures passed each other. Air stood behind Lao Sha, maintaining the posture of drawing his sword. Air danced his sword handsomely, put the sword into its sheath, and said with a concave expression, "Your strength has disappeared as the heart of a strong man is broken. It's a pity that I will strike you with all my strength. There is only the end of failure." After thinking he was handsome, Air didn't get a response from Lao Sha. Looking back in confusion, Lao Sha had a terrible wound on his chest that could clearly see his internal organs. He fell to the ground on his back, and he was already taking in more air than out. Air looked confused and quickly ran to him. Looking at Lao Sha who was about to die, he quickly threw Cheng-Dong aside, held his head and shouted excitedly, "Hey, Sand Crocodile, cheer up, don't die." "I haven't reported to the headquarters yet. How will I explain to the marshal if you die?" Air grabbed his body and shook it back and forth. Under his control, Lao Sha slowly opened his eyes and looked at Air who was anxiously begging him not to die. He felt that he had been insulted like never before. "You bastard I must." Before he finished speaking, Lao Sha vomited a large mouthful of blood, closed his eyes, kicked his legs, and passed out. Seeing that something was wrong, Air quickly picked him up and sent him to the rainy place for treatment. After working for several hours, the doctor walked out of the operating room and shook his head helplessly. "Damn, this is too casual. Your sand fruit is not rare." Cursing a few words in his mind, Air hesitantly took the phone, gritted his teeth and broadcast the call to the headquarters. "Balu, Gaga, Moses, this is Marshal Sengoku." Air held the phone bug and greeted Sengoku awkwardly. "Well, Marshal Sengoku, I am Lieutenant Colonel Air." "It's you. What do you want from me?" "Haha, it's nothing. I was out shopping, and then I met Crocodile from 7 Warlords of the Sea. For some reason, I got into a fight with him, and then then he died." There was silence for a while on the other end of the phone, and suddenly Sengoku's roar came. "Arsehole kid, you know what you did? This is a big pirate recognized by the government, and as a marine, you actually did it privately without the government's permission. You are smearing the government's face, do you know?" Looking at the phone bug's exaggerated expression, Air knew without even thinking how angry Sengoku was at this moment. After picking his ears, Air calmly comforted Sengoku. Marshal Sengoku, don't be angry. It's just a shikibukai. Just choose another one. Hash. 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 Arsehole. Get back to Marineford. Now. Park I tilde. Looking at the hung-up phone, Air put it back in his pocket and sighed. Walking back to the operating room, I looked at Lao Sha lying lifeless on the operating table. Air covered him with a white cloth sympathetically. Crocodile, glorious in life, glorious in death. Well. Great. May you go to heaven with the blessing of the gods after your death. Apostrophe. After silently praying for him, Air turned and left. Returning to the palace in the capital, Air explained everything that happened today to Cobra and others. Of course, he didn't mention Pluton in public. He just used the excuse of overhearing that Crocodile wanted to steal the country to fool everyone. Hina crossed her arms, looked at Air who had pain in her balls, and said coldly, "You and Smoker are both idiots. You disobeyed orders, acted without permission, and even killed a shikibukai. I think you will be punished when you return to the headquarters this time." Hina is very happy. Looking at Hina who was making sarcastic remarks, Air said with a wry smile, "Yes, Marshal Sengoku is very angry this time. It seems that there is no need to think about promotion. Don't demote me a few levels. Just let me be a soldier. I will be satisfied. Perhaps Hina should call you Air Seaman First Class. What do you think, Lieutenant Colonel Tilda?" After patting Air on the shoulder, Hina turned and left with a faint smile on her lips. Chapter 49 Five Elders Calls. Thank you young for your monthly ticket. Half a month later, Air, who was struggling, finally returned to the familiar naval headquarters. After disbanding his soldiers, Air came to the marshal's office alone. Dong tilde. Please come in. Air opened a crack and carefully poked his head out. As soon as he saw the situation inside clearly, Air was startled. He quickly opened the door, stood at attention and saluted. "Marshal Sengoku, Ake Ainu Admiral, Okiji Admiral, Kizaru Admiral, Crane Vice Admiral." Naval Headquarters Lieutenant Colonel Air comes to report on his duties. That's right. Except for Sengoku, Marine's three most powerful admirals and the Vice Admiral were all present. When Air announced his address, several big shots looked at him. The strong sense of oppression made Air's anus clenched and she became nervous instinctively. It was Okiji-Kizan who spoke first, breaking the oppressive atmosphere in the room. "Alara, is this Air? I heard teachers ever mention you more than once. It's so scary today's young people. I was shocked when I heard the news that Crocodile was defeated." "You don't need to look at it." This sinister tone sounds like it was spoken by Kizaru. Both admirals spoke, but Ake Ainu sat there silently, lowering his head and wondering what he was thinking. Regarding the compliments from the two admirals, Air modestly declined. "No, I'm far behind compared to the two admirals." Hash. Bang. "Bastard brat. Do you think this is a compliment to you? Do you know how much effort I put into suppressing this matter? Even the five elders knew about it and reprimanded me." The angry Sengoku opened his mouth and responded, and the unreasonable Air was too embarrassed to refute. After Sengoku finished speaking and his anger subsided a little, Granny He, who had been silent until now, spoke. "Okay Sengoku, things have already happened, and it is useless to hold people responsible. Let's ask her first what the conflict between the two of them was about." After saying that, she turned to stare at Air and said, "Tell me exactly what happened that day." When she looked at him like this, Air felt like all his secrets were being seen through. He bit the bullet and told the story he had already made up. "That day. And then there was a fight. Blah blah blah. And then he died. That's it. That is to say, you accidentally discovered that Crocodile wanted to steal Alabaster's throne, and then you guys fought, right?" Granny He looked at him meaningfully, her words full of doubt. Air nodded in agreement without blushing. "Yes, that's the reason." Although Grandma He didn't see anything from Air's expression, there were still obvious flaws in Air's words. Just when she wanted to continue questioning, the phone on Sengoku's desk rang. Baloo tilde. Moses, this is Marshal Sengoku." Sengoku picked up the phone and said. An old voice came from the other end of the phone, attracting the attention of everyone present. "Sengoku, give the phone bug to that brat named Air." Sengoku was stunned when he heard this, waved to Air, handed him the phone bug, and said at the same time, "Five elders, show me some respect." "Five elders!" Air was shocked when he heard this name. He was very familiar with this name. Five elders refers to the five representatives of the celestial dragons, the supreme leaders of the world government. Of course, Air, who has traveled through time, knows that there is a mysterious lord in controlling everything behind them. But this does not hinder the fact that the five people are the pinnacle of power in this world. The moment he answered the call, Air, who should have been in a panic, calmed down inexplicably. "Lord Five Elders, I am Lieutenant Colonel Air. Above the red line, the Holy Land Marie Joys, in the city of Pangu. The five elders were sitting around a table. One of the five elders was bald and had a mustache. Topman Wakilai said to the phone bug on the table, "You little brat from the Neferutari family, you have done something incredible." Air's calm Kaido, "Ah, it seems so." Hearing this calm tone, The brows of the Sengoku people jumped. Wakilai didn't care about his tone and continued, "Tell me why you fought Crocodile and what his purpose was." Air raised a smile on his lips and teased, "Didn't you guess it?" "That's right, it's for the secret of the Nefertari royal family, that piece of historical text about something incredible. Do you want me to reveal it?" "That's enough. No need to say more." Wakilai interrupted Air's words and said in a deep tone, "This is the end of Crocodile's matter. We will declare his crime." "You did a good job." "Thank you very much, Lord Five Elders, otherwise I really don't know what to do." While speaking, Air also glanced at Sengoku, which made Sengoku furious. If this kid hadn't been talking to the Five Elders, he would have gone up and punched him twice. Seeing Sengoku like this, Air's heart skipped a beat and he quickly asked seriously, "Excuse me, Lord Five Elders, do you have any other instructions?" The voice over there was silent for a while, and then suddenly asked, "Kid, what's the matter with the D in your name?" Chapter 50 Descendants of 20 Kings. Coming, apostrophe. Air knew this day would come a long time ago. A descendant of 20 kings with a D in his name will sooner or later be noticed by interested people. Is this it? In memory of my mother who died in childbirth, my father took out a D from her name and changed it. From the look of the comics, didn't even know there was a D in Lily's name at first. This was not what Air said randomly, but what Cobra told him when he asked Cobra why he was the only one with a D in his name. As for the truth, that's none of his business. "I see, I understand, kid. Give the phone bug to Sengoku. I have something to tell you." Air did as he was told. After Sengoku took the phone, he glared at him fiercely and said, "I am Sengoku. What are your orders?" "The government will issue a notice later. Crocodile intended to usurp the throne of Alabasta. He was discovered and killed by Marine Lieutenant Colonel Air in advance. I don't need to explain the rest." Sengoku glanced at Air in surprise, and Air responded with an expression that said it was none of my business. "Yes, I understand." "That's it." Damn, the phone has hung up. In Pangu City, Wakilai glanced at the four people and asked, "What do you think?" The bald Five Elders holding the sword said angrily, "He's just a traitor, just destroy him." The Five Elders with curly hair in a hat agreed, "That's right, and this guy actually has D in his name. He doesn't even take us seriously." Bearded Five Elders has an attitude of "I listen to you, don't ask me." Five Elders in a yellow-haired suit knocked on the table, stopped the two yelling people, and said, "Stop arguing. You are just a non-threatening kid. The time is not yet ripe, so let's put it on hold for now. Don't forget the adults' plan." After hearing this, several other people were silent for a while, nodded in agreement, and put the matter aside for the time being. On the other side, in the marshal's office, even after hanging up the phone, there was still a weird atmosphere in the office. "It's so scary, Brother Air. It's really amazing that you can still talk calmly in the face of big figures like Five Elders." Kizaru pouted and praised in a strange accent. "You must know that even as an admiral, I have never spoken to the Five Elders in this tone." Okiji and Ake Ainu also looked at Air with strange eyes, not knowing what they were thinking. Air was about to make a joke, but when he was fooled, Granny he suddenly interrupted, "It must be because of Nefertari." Hearing Granny he speak, several people's attention was attracted. Even Air looked at her in surprise. He crossed his hands on his chest and said calmly, 800 years ago, 20 kings jointly formed the world government. 19 of them abandoned their original countries and moved to the Holy Land Mari-e-Joys. Their descendants are today's celestial dragons." After a pause, she looked up at Air and continued, "But there is another king who refused to move into the Holy Land and returned to his homeland to continue his original rule. And this country is Alabasta, and this king is the ancestor of the Nefertari family." After the words fell, the three admirals including Sengoku widened their eyes in surprise. This was the first time for them to hear this kind of secret. Air shook his head and smiled bitterly, and praised, as expected of Crane Vice Admiral, "He even knows this. But please don't compare me with trash like celestial dragons. I am different from them." Aokiji, who was shocked by the breaking news, took a while to regain his composure and said briskly, "Alala, you are the only one who can say this, little brother. Ordinary people say celestial dragons is garbage, and the consequences will be very serious." "Hi, if you put it this way, can Brother Air not obey the orders of the celestial dragons?" Kizaru asked curiously, crossing his legs. Even as an admiral, he has to obey the command of the celestial dragons. He is very curious about what Air, who is half a celestial dragon, will do when he meets the celestial dragons. Scratching his head, Air thought about that scene for a moment, shrugged and said, "I don't know, maybe." As a marine, obeying orders is the rule of the military. No matter what the status is or what the reason is, as long as it is an order, a soldier must obey it. Ake Ainu, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke. Ake Ainu's words made Air instinctively unhappy, but he didn't say anything and just dealt with it in silence. Afterwards, the office became quiet again. Seeing that the atmosphere in the venue had cooled down again, Sengoku pressed his swollen temples and spoke calmly, "Okay, we'll talk about these things later. Let's talk about Air's situation first." After drawing everyone's attention back, Sengoku said, "Originally, I wanted this bastard kid to go back to the recruiting camp for 2 years to review But you also heard what the 5 elders just said. According to this situation, Air is not only not at fault, but should be rewarded. Air trembled when he heard that he was about to be sent back to the recruiting camp. Fortunately, Sengoku changed his tone and turned punishment into a reward, which made him sigh in relief. Thank you, Marshal Sengoku. Idiot, if you dare to do such stupid things next time, I will definitely kick you back to the recruiting camp and let Zephyr teach you a lesson. Air shook his head like a rattle and waved his hands repeatedly to express his fear. Sengoku then sighed and let him go.